And in CrossFit also, you get so many different people. You get like doctors and students and lawyers down to like garbage men to whatever, like all working out together, all in the same level playing field, you know, suffering and succeeding together. So you get that community, love that versus, you know, going to the gym and a lot of ego there. And there's not in CrossFit because you're gonna get your ass handed to one way or another. Like you may kick ass in this one workout and totally excel, but then the next day you're gonna come in and it's gonna be something that you suck at and you're gonna die and the little grandma's gonna beat you.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 91 of the Andrew Deitch podcast. Did you miss me? I'm back. I'm finally back after almost a full month. Wow, it's been quite a hiatus, the longest break I've ever had since launching the podcast, but you know, it was really, really nice to be on a break, and it gave me a lot of time to reflect on where I've come in the past year. It's been a year since I launched the podcast. So crazy. But since my last episode, I have been a lot of places. I went to Arizona, went to the Grand Canyon. I attended EDC Las Vegas, only one day, but one day was enough. Vegas is cool. In small doses. Los Angeles to visit my friend Ashlyn from episode 2. Went to Denver, Colorado to stay with my friends Taylor and Sam. And last week I had an amazing podcast anniversary / birthday party where I invited all my previous guests and friends to celebrate with me. It was absolutely amazing. I feel so loved and appreciated, and I can say without a doubt May was one of the best months of my life. So during the past few weeks, I've also managed to record 7 episodes for you guys. So I'm excited to drop those on y'all over the coming weeks. But this break was slightly unintentional. The beginning of the month, it kind of started off strong, you know, as launching episodes, and just got a little bit behind in my recording schedule. But in the month of May, I uploaded 3 episodes, right? And I was so paranoid that everyone was going to, you know, forget about my show and forget about me during the break. And while I was away, I was so afraid of checking my analytics because I was so afraid that they would be bad. And it actually turned out that nothing could be farther from the truth. The month of May was actually my highest downloaded month of all time with almost 5,000 subscribers. And on May 21st, I had 1,367 people accessing the feed, which is the highest I've ever had on a single day. And if this is your first time listening to the show, I'm really sorry for getting so sappy and telling you all these numbers, but I'm just really excited about the growth that we've had, and you know, the fact that I was gone and had the best month ever is just amazing, and it means the world to me that if this is your first time checking out the show, thank you so much for checking it out. Thank you for choosing to listen to it, and I hope you stick around. And in case you don't know, my show is all about having meaningful conversations with people who are changing the world, and today is absolutely no different. And normally, this is where I would do a sponsored section of the podcast where I would kind of share from one of our amazing sponsors that keep the show afloat. But today, on this special rebound episode, it's on the house. But if you are interested in sponsoring this podcast, you can visit andrewdeitch.com/contact, and you can reach me there. I've got a lot of exciting sponsorship opportunities lined up with some brands and people that I really believe in. So definitely keep your eyes and ears peeled. But let's get into the show. So my guest today is my new friend, Megan May. And Megan is a former bodybuilder turned CrossFit influencer, and she's a huge proponent of the ketogenic diet. And she was also on the last season of American Ninja Warrior. And on top of that, she is the mother of a beautiful baby boy. And if you're looking for an example of what it looks like to be a badass mama, then look no further. But just to give you a little backstory, Megan was one of the original trainers of the very first original CrossFit boxes in Miami. Then she moved to New York City in 2012 to be the manager of Reebok CrossFit Fifth Ave. And then in 2016, she moved to Dubai to help open and manage a CrossFit Gold box there. And also, just to give a little backstory on how I met Megan, I was reaching out to my friends and audience and told them that I was going to be on this massive trip. and I was going to be spending some time in Las Vegas. So my friend Richard Corbett from episode 47 told me I had to have his friend Megan on the podcast. So of course we made it happen. But anyways, on this episode, we talked a lot about fitness, the keto diet. We also discussed her natural in-home birth of her son. Pretty interesting stuff. But I could keep bragging about Megan, but I'm going to let her do the talking. So please, without any further ado, please welcome my new friend, Megan May.
The magic button has been pressed. Oh my gosh. I didn't turn off my phone. It just vibrated. That was such a foul on my part.
Good Samsung Android. Awesome.
Right?
I'm with you.
Wow. What does that say about me as a person? Like, does that say something like...
That you understand technology and computers and... Yeah.
So if you have an iPhone, it means you don't?
Maybe not to the extent of... like... I know you said it in your podcast before. It's like you could manipulate androids. You know, you can go in there, and that's the same reason my husband turned on to from iPhones to Androids.
Interesting.
Yeah, because he would jailbreak his phone and do all kinds of stuff. So
exactly,
the fact that you have that freedom, and if you don't need it, you don't know what you're missing. So like Apple's a beautiful setup and has great things and user friendly. So
exactly, I think that's a great way of putting it. It's like blissfully unaware. It's like you don't know what you don't know, and if it works for you, then sweet.
Yep.
Exactly. Yep. Well, we're not going to talk anymore about phones.
Okay.
Because that is not your area of expertise. But okay, so I'm here with Megan May. Just met her, but I feel like I already know you. You know, like we're hitting it off better than some guests have. So, but just to give a little background, so my friend Richard, who's been on the podcast before, I told him that I was doing this trip, and he said, "Oh my gosh, you definitely have to have Megan on the podcast when you're in Las Vegas." So we're here in Nevada. Yay. It's pretty exciting. I think it's the first podcast I've ever done in Nevada. So
good.
Yeah.
West Coast.
Yes, West Coast represent. So Megan, if you can just kind of like explain who you are briefly and what you kind of do, if it's possible to briefly.
It's a loaded question, I guess. And I was laughing with my husband thinking like, man, you know, like I'm going to be one of the older guests, I think, on here. And with that comes like a long life history of like events. So I was like, man, what do I want to talk about? And there's so many things that I could hit on. Mm-hmm. I guess I'll just kind of start from the beginning, just see where we go.
Yeah.
Because I'm from Atlanta also. My husband and I are out here for various reasons, and but was in Atlanta. Douglasville grew up, so
very nice.
A little west of Atlanta, a little southern girl. Was out there for about 30 years.
Wow.
And and finally escaped. No, it's a great place, especially now. But I guess as a little girl, I always remember myself being like super shy and self-conscious, and you know that comes with like the self-conscious kind of came with like a low self-esteem on my part, and I know it was something I learned from my mother, and also I guess a personality thing, you know, because my sister was the opposite, like would talk to everybody, no strangers, like, you know, and I have another brother and he was the same way. And then the youngest was just like me. So it was kind of cool to see, especially being a parent myself, like where those genetic traits come in, what's learned and what's also genetic. But
it is like really interesting.
Yeah.
Because like you out of the box, kids already come like pre-wired with some pretty hardcore stuff.
Yes.
That like is definitely not like just nurtured.
Yeah.
Like there's
a lot of nature in there.
For sure.
Nature versus nurture. There's a little bit of both.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I just remember, like I said, just being shy. Like I remember my dad, like one time I was at the grocery store with him and lost like tried to get a gumball out of the gumball machine, you know, back in the day when you had those. And it took my quarter. So he's like, oh, let's go talk to the nice person at the service desk. Why don't you, tell them it took your quarter? And I'm like, no, don't make me talk to them. Like, this is so like terrified.
Worst nightmare.
Yeah, like the scariest thing to me. Like, I don't even know, like they're going to eat me or something. Who knows? You know, and I laughed because that like continued all through like college. I moved out and I remember not even wanting to like call the pizza guy, I'd be like rehearsing, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get this, this, and this, and that whole, and it's just like the self-esteem, self-confidence thing, like just being able to be like, hey, fuck it, if I sound like an idiot, then okay, cool, but when you have that lower self-esteem, it's like you always think people are watching, people are judging, like I don't want to look stupid, and with that, like I found that I was like a performance driven. So like I was a smarter kid, was in some gifted classes growing up, and with that I'm like, oh, I can excel, I can be the smart person, I can, like be notified that like, oh cool, you excel here, you get self-worth from that, so that was like my thing, like all right, got straight A's, was in the honors classes, graduated with honors and all that stuff, and let's see, I started taking gymnastics when I was little, which was cool because that's kind of like out of the box. And I did it because my best friend who lived next door was like, hey, I'm doing gymnastics, let's do gymnastics. And did that scary thing for me because it's a team sport, but it's an individual sport. Like you're on the floor doing your routine, everybody's watching, total spotlight. So that kind of helped me get out of my shell a little bit there and get confidence, especially on the things I excelled at, so like really good at the bars or the vault, like strong stuff.
Yeah.
And I do remember like actually excelling early on with like the strength portion. So we'd like do our practices, and then afterwards it'd be like, okay, you got to do your conditioning and push-ups and pull-ups and whatever. And I really enjoyed that. It's like the power of feeling strong and, like seeing the changes and how that affected. So from an early age, I was definitely into the strength training as I look back.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So it was like you were doing like the bars and stuff, so like upper body kind of stuff? Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So we didn't have like a weight training area at our gym, so it was all like body weight stuff.
Yeah.
It's like
gymnastics makes sense.
Yeah. And then I eventually started coaching, actually while I was competing when I was like 16, coaching and competing. And again, that was another helpful area in like my self-esteem thing because, like get to like teach people things and see them progress. And again, though, I remember like being awesome with the kids, like, oh, just act like an idiot and have fun and help them have fun. But as soon as their parents would come talk to me, I'd be like, oh my God, scary parent. Oh my God, I'm nervous, And so again, that self-esteem came in there.
I think also it's like when you talk to someone older, you get intimidated because you think that they have like so much more experience or something than you.
Yes.
So you like feel stupid. Like I kind of get that way for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And even now, like, I guess you would say that like when you talk to experts and stuff, you get a little nervous. You're like, oh my God, I don't want to say something stupid,
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah, but I think the more you kind of talk to more people and stuff, the more you realize that everybody is still kind of trying to figure everything out for themselves too. Like nobody's got it figured out.
Yes. And it's okay to say, oh, I don't know. Or, oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Cool.
Exactly.
Tell me more. Versus like, oh, you don't know that. Nobody does that.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody says that to you like, oh, I can't believe you don't know that.
Yeah. And if there are people like that, you need to stay away from them.
Exactly.
Because they're annoying.
Exactly.
But you started coaching and stuff, and then that kind of like helped you.
Yeah. And during this time also, I also was learning that I also had a talent with connecting with people and helping them out, like with my friends, like, oh, they're struggling through something, let me talk to you. And this was something I learned early on from my mother. She was very loving and caring and always looked out to like listen to people's problems. Like I remember my friends like showing up and talking to my mom about their problems while I'm at gymnastics practice, and I get home and they're like, oh, I was just talking to your mom because things are bad at home, and I'm like, oh, okay. And we took in strays, such and such got kicked out of their house, they'd come stay at our house. And
that's funny.
And it was always like, no judgments here, whatever's going on. Oh, you're struggling with drugs or whatever and your parents kick you out, let's help you get on the right path, let's get you this. So it was cool. That was something I learned from my mom, like no judgments, like love on people, unconditional love, and like help them find their.
Do you think that was like, did your mom ever like struggle with that kind of stuff herself?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was gonna say I feel like that's a big part of that. Yes. Because being able to like relate, because like my parents, like for example, my dad, like he's never like smoked anything in his life, never like
done any recreational drugs. I don't think he even drank until he was 21, and the drinking age was like 18 at the time. So it's like he was like the most like straight edge dude. So like as soon as like me and my brother like started to kind of like experiment with that stuff in high school, it was like, what are you doing? You're a demon child. Like, and like just because also he grew up in like this tiny little town in Ohio. So it was like totally different worlds, and like so I couldn't even imagine my parents like ever like, oh yeah, come on in, let's, you know, help you out, blah, blah. It was like, stay away from that kid, he's a bad influence on you or whatever. Like,
you're gonna get infected by the demons. No, my parents actually grew up in like the hippie area, so like I remember when I was little finding my mom's like love beads and playing with them, and like my dad's like roach clip and him being like, oh well, you know, that was the one time I smoked weed and it made me want to like rape and kill people, you know, like this is when I was young. And then later he's like, whatever.
He's like, I've been smoking weed this whole time.
Yeah, right. So not that my parents ever had problems with drugs growing up, but they definitely did, like I said, hippie area, experimented and stuff. But my mom did suffer like the lower self-esteem. She had an alcoholic father, so got lots of emotional abuse, led to some eating disorders. And so growing up, I remember watching her always dieting, you know, like, and just trying to lose weight and get on the next diet program and whatever. And so it was never like told to me, oh, you're fat, or oh, you need to look a certain way. It was a learned thing from watching my mom. Well, I'm not good enough unless I, you know,
lose
like
10 pounds,
lose 10 pounds or look like the girl in the magazine. And, you know, like she never wanted to be in pictures. It was never like, she never was happy with herself and never loved herself. And that's something I definitely picked up on with that low self-esteem, and started having an eating disorder myself. And, you know, people are like, oh, well, it's because you're in gymnastics. And it was like, no, my gymnastics area was like very loving environment, never talked about weight. But it was that like, I'm not good enough. I need to fit in. I need to lose this. I need to look like this girl, and I'll be happier if I do, and people will like me better if I look like this girl. So struggled with bulimia. Anorexic's really hard. I don't know how you don't eat.
Right. I couldn't do that.
I would try, and then at the end of the day, I'd be like, give me food. Yeah. And then I'd be like, oh no, I ate all that food. Let me vomit it up, or let me go run 5 miles, you know? So it's like crazy stuff like that.
It's such a weird mindset thing too, because like, I think when you're in that, you think that like food equals like weight just sticking to your body. Like you think like, I just consumed all that and it's just gonna stay there.
Yes.
And it's like, in reality, you're gonna lose a lot of it and use whatever you can, blah, blah, blah. And of course, if you're just like binging on junk food, it's probably not the best thing. But I think we get that like mindset, of course, like, you know, if you eat a huge meal and then you step on the scale, you're heavier. Yep. But that's not a good barometer of
all
where
the water
you stand.
It's exactly in there. You haven't gone to the bathroom yet. Like
exactly. Like my dad, he knows this lady at the gym that will not step on the scale unless she's like gone to the bathroom first. And like she's super weird about it. Like she went to the doctor and she wouldn't step on the scale. Wow. Because she's like, I didn't work out and I didn't go to the bathroom. I don't want to know the number. And it's like, okay.
How that scale controls us.
Yeah.
It is crazy. Yeah.
And the number on the scale, like, I mean, we can get into this, like, doesn't really mean anything, you know?
And that's something I've definitely learned getting older and getting into the strength training thing, was because absolutely, like, you're going to put muscle on and it's going to weigh a lot more.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You know, I weigh a lot more than I did when I was back competing and
for sure.
just started out. And
I think that's like a huge thing on Instagram nowadays. Like people love seeing those like before and after things. And I love it when people are more honest, like, yo, in this before picture, I actually weighed like less than in this after picture, but the after picture looks way better.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like physically fit.
Yeah.
Versus just kind of being a blob.
I feel better. I'm not skinny fat. I have all this muscle tone.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. But we can get into that. So, okay. So continuing on the story.
Oh yeah. So with that eating disorder, continuing.
How long did that like last for?
You know, I got busted. We'll say that. Like, but it was kind of one of those things. Like I was very smart about it. Like researched what was going on, knew exactly what I was doing. Like. But it's one of those things like, oh, I can control this. I can stop whenever, you know, and like it kind of downward spirals. And actually one of my friends that was living with us, a little stray, who took in, like, knew what was going on because she had suffered it. So she, like, told my parents, like, hey. So they actually took me to a treatment center.
Wow.
Which was good, you know? Like, I like that they
course.
were just like, nope, let's just take care of this. Let's go right now. Did an outpatient treatment thing, like, just would go every day and do the counseling and stuff. And it helps, you know, and you're like, oh, cool, I'm back on. But then, you know, it's kind of like with a lot of other things, like addictions and, you know, other, you know, things that you have, issues that you have, like, that's just the symptom, you know, like, what's the underlying cause? And until you can dig in and really find what that underlying cause is, then it's just going to resurface. So, like, we touched on the surface when I was in there, but I think maybe I did like a 2-week program or something and back out. So I'm like, oh, it's good. And then it just downward
Right
spirals
back into the same environment and everything. Same problems, same issues.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
got back in. And it's funny, like, smart girl, I know how to game the system. Like, oh, everything, you know, like.
Most, like, you know, people that deal with, like, addictions and stuff are master manipulators.
Yes.
Like, that's how you get to that point.
Absolutely.
Because if you can't cover your own tracks, you're going to get caught way early on.
Absolutely. Actually, I remember Richard saying that in his podcast, and it's totally true. And it's like, everything's awesome, everything's great, you know. And like, here I am helping other people with their eating disorders, and I'm like, you know, secretly still suffering from mine. And maybe it's not as frequent. And
Not to get, like, super dark, but that's almost kind of like the Bill Cosby thing. You know, it's like he was, like, America's father, like, all this, like, don't pull up your pants, kids. And then meanwhile, he had this crazy, dark, you know, evil, really.
And
you know,
it's,
demons.
He can see that, you know, like, and it's like, when you have that darkness and those demons inside you, it's easier to spot, you know, like, because you recognize, you're like, I see the suffering, I feel it too, you know, which, when you can overcome that, is a very powerful thing. Especially, you know, like I said, I love helping people, and that's something I learned from my mom. So
sometimes that's like a strength and a weakness too. Like, for me, one thing that I realize, like, I am, like, very trusting of people.
Yes.
And, like, sometimes it can bite me in the ass. Like, you know, a lot of times it can.
Absolutely.
But, like, sometimes I think it's almost kind of like happy-go-lucky sort of stuff. Like, I'm not as, like, paranoid about people trying to, like, take advantage of me.
Yes.
Whereas I can see other people, like, they're constantly, like, looking, like, for people to steal their stuff or whatever. Yeah. And, like, sometimes I wonder if that's because, like, they have those thoughts of, like, stealing other people's stuff or are tempted to do things like that, where, not to be, like, toot my own horn, like, I've never thought about stealing anything. But, you know, like, those thoughts don't always come, like, to the forefront. So, like, I'm not always thinking about that kind of stuff. I don't know.
No, I'm with you. And it's that positive outlook on life. And, you know, like, people might say that's naivety. And, like, at the beginning, I could definitely tell you, like, teenage, like, early college years, like, definitely got taken advantage too many times, because I'm like, oh, let me save the world and help everyone. And, oh, you need money because of this, I'm going to give it to you. And let alone, you know, they turn around and buy drugs for it, and they've given you a manipulated sob story of, like, oh, you know, and, like, so you do kind of start to harden up a little bit and have those walls. But then there's also, you kind of learn in that thing, like, with helping people, something I learned was, like, you can't enable, you know, like, the enabling is not helping them. It's helping them continue their path to the dark side. So
for sure,
you know, so you have to find that fine line.
Tough love.
The tough love of, like, hey, I'm going to help you out, but this is it, you know, and, like, I'm going to be here if you want to go to a meeting or go to here or whatever, but I can't give you money, you know,
exactly.
I can't give you this. And so, yeah, definitely. But I'm always like, oh, sunshines and rainbows and everybody's awesome. And so,
like, oh, this is the story you told me, I'll just believe that, you know?
exactly.
Like, why should I believe that you're lying to me?
Yep. So I guess I wanted to touch on also, one of the biggest things that I got to do for someone else, as far as my, like, oh, I love to help people, was one of my best friend's moms. It's actually a sister and a brother. I'm really good friends with them, and was very close to their mom. She was a single mom, and, like, was like a second mom. And, you know, like, we'd go over there and hang out, and she'd have dinner, and, like, just, you could always call on her for anything. And she ended up remarrying and wanted to have kids, but had some issues having kids. And this was about when I was, like, 19, 20, and she approached me and just asked me, like, hey, would you be willing to do an egg donation for me? she was like, you really resemble me as with our traits. And
wow.
I would, like, it would be an honor and like, whatever. So I was like, no question, like, oh, yeah, awesome.
Were you like honored by that? Like, did you
absolutely.
feel? Yeah.
Like that she trusted me enough that, like I would take care of my body and, like be willing to do this and
that's really
help
cool.
bring forth life, which is like a big honor. So I was actually still dating my husband at the time. We started dating my summer of senior year in high school. He was already in college. But so I kind of had to go and talk it out with him, because it involved him. If we're planning on having a future together, we'd been together for a bit then, and talked about it. And he kind of came to the same conclusion, like, yeah, like what an honor to be able to help somebody bring life in. So went through that whole process, and it's funny. Like I remember before the extraction of the eggs and stuff, like you're going through, or maybe before the whole process, you're going through all the like fine print and the legal stuff, and they're going through everything and this and this and and then it's like, oh well, and there's a 1% chance that you could have ovarian hyperstimulation and your ovaries swell to the size of melons. Because I was like, oh, what's this? I'm like, tell me about this. And I'm like, oh, and it's this company we were working with in Atlanta was like, but we've been doing this for 10 years and we've never seen anybody have this. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So you just sign your life away. And there's always like when you get a surgery, like, oh, and you could die of anesthesia, and you're like, it's fine,
Yeah, it's like skydiving. It's like, you could die. It's like, yeah, I know. That's what I signed up for.
It's good. That doesn't happen. Well, did the egg donation. They extracted. Well, the crazy thing is when they went in to extract, a big donation was about like 20 eggs. They ended up taking out 120 eggs.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like near the end there, they didn't realize I had a hormone imbalance. And so I guess near the end, when the hormones got high, that you have to like take, like my eggs just went boop, 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 and like multiplied. So huge extraction. So from that, my body kind of went in shock and had that ovarian hyperstimulation.
And did they grow the size of melons?
Yes. So
my gosh.
I did the donation on a Saturday, and they give you like the take home of like, here's your symptoms, here's your normal things your body will go through. If these things start happening, call us. So Sunday I remember going through some of those normal things like nausea and like not feeling good, and then it kind of progressed to the evening, and I was like, all right, we're gonna have to go in the morning. So
yeah.
I remember that night just being like cramped up, couldn't sleep, it was bad, just rolling around. Whoa. And we knew they opened at 8 a.m. So
what was it again? Hyperstimulation?
Yeah, ovarian hyperstimulation.
So it was just like too much activity, like they removed too much, and it was like
I think it was just the rebound effect.
Or something?
Yeah, and so my ovaries just went from tiny little like berries to like melons. Like literally, I looked like I was pregnant.
Wow.
I was vomiting. We had to pull over the car twice for me to vomit on the way there. And I'd get into the office, and like, it's funny. I'm always like, oh, I'm fine. Like whenever I get sick, I'm like, oh, I downplay everything. Like, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. Like I don't like being the sick. Don't give me sympathy. So I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Like get in the office and sit down, and I literally can't sit up, and I'm like curled over, and I'm with like all these other patients that are like there for all their normal stuff, and I'm like, not good for business. So they're like, let's go in the back. So they put me in the back, and I remember hooked me up to a bunch of IVs, gave me fluid, and then they were like, you have to go to the hospital.
Whoa.
So it took me over to the hospital, ended up having to drain my ovaries with like tons of fluid out, and I don't even remember that. I remember waking up a week later in like intensive care.
Whoa.
Yeah, like...
That's intense.
It's crazy. And
like literally intensive care is
intense.
Yeah.
Like don't remember the first week, just in and out kind of stuff. And then they moved me into like a private room. And I like at the end of the week was coming to, and like my best friend that I donated to his mom, like he like stayed with me 24/7. My husband now, like my boyfriend then he was in school, so he'd go to school and then come and hang out with me. And, so I started coming to, and funny things, like I remember like they would like bring you all these pills, and I'd be like, hey, what's that? Hey, what's that? And I remember coming to and being like, I got to go to the bathroom. Like, where do I take a poop? And like, there's no bathroom in intensive care, and you're like, wait, I don't get my private bathroom. And so the nurse is like, I'm asking them like, well, I got to go to the bathroom. Where do I go? And they're like, a bedpan, and I'm like 19, 20, and I'm like, the thought of going to the bathroom in a bedpan is like, mortified.
Disgusting thing ever.
Yeah, and I'm like, So when they would like bring me my pills, I'd be like, what's that? You know, one was like a laxative because I hadn't gone to the bathroom. So my friend would like throw it out. Because I was like, I am not going to the bathroom in a bedpan. And then I remember a couple days later going to get a CAT scan. They were like just checking everything out. And the nurses like laughing. They were like, you are full of shit. Like literally, you have to go to the bathroom. So finally, one of the nurses like coaches me into like a super sweet angel woman. Was like, listen, we can bring in this little portable toilet thing. You know, like I'll give you privacy as soon as you're done. We'll come and take it away. You know, and I was like, all right, fine. But you know, fun experience of all that, and like tubes hooked up to me. I had like a catheter in my heart. I had,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, one from my ovaries and a, like oxygen thing. And like people would come visit me and like I was embarrassed to have like all this stuff and I'd like take the oxygen thing and I'm like, no, I'm good. Everything's fine. Don't have sympathy on me.
Right.
But
what's weird is there's some people that are the total opposite. Like they eat that up. Like they cannot get enough sympathy.
Yeah.
Like they know, the woe is me, like posting pictures from the hospital. Like I was talking to this girl from Canada. And like in Canada, they have like, universal healthcare stuff.
Yes.
She said that like people will like sometimes like kind of just for fun, like if they're like kind of sick, they'll just like call an ambulance and like go to the hospital just to like make people like feel bad for them.
Oh, jeez.
And like post, like get a day off work
Selfie
or whatever.
in the ambulance,
Yeah, like get a day off work or whatever. Like, I'm like, what? No, I would never want that.
It's not fun.
No. But I mean, who knows? Like but I'm sure people are doing that. People take advantage of all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. I've never been like liking the attention on me, so I'd always be like, no, how are you doing? And you're like, no, we're here to see you. What's going on? No.
Yeah.
Tell me what's going on in the outside world. So
Did the donor feel like terrible?
Oh my gosh. She would come like all the time to visit me and like
I can only imagine.
Yeah, when I got out, like just went over and beyond to like just make sure I had everything I need and take care of me and like it was good. She's an amazing woman. But I was actually in college when this happened and I just started an exercise science major. And one of the classes I was taking was like a strength and conditioning class. And so for the class, they would be like, okay, we're going to learn these exercises and go down. So I'd been doing this it was almost a full semester. And the doctor that I talked to in the hospital, because I'd gained some muscle on that, like just had really honed in on my strength in there. And the doctor actually told me, like, if you hadn't have been this strong and this in good a shape, you would have died. You wouldn't have made it.
Whoa.
Yeah. Like, I went in at 128 pounds in the hospital and, like, left at, like, 117. It was, like,
wow.
I was, like, decrepit. It was crazy. Like,
wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I remember going from, like, like, running miles super fast and, like, lifting weights and stuff to, like, being in the hospital bed. And I remember my friend was in there with me and I dropped the remote and I like reached down to get it from my hospital bed and came back up and I was like, and I was like, oh my God, I'm like a fat chick. I can't even breathe. And he's like laughing at me. So it was crazy to go from
You're like watching yourself wither away.
Yes. And if you like sit in a bed, like your center of gravity changes. So like, I was like almost like pancaked. I remember my husband was like, they like were taking me to go to the CAT scan and he was like, oh, is that going to go back to normal? Like, because I was like flattened. It's crazy.
That's weird.
Yeah, crazy.
That's kind of funny.
So, but fast forward like 2 years later and she ended up getting pregnant and has a boy. He's in high school now and
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Does he know that you're the donor?
He doesn't. She said she wants to tell him like after he's like 18 or so. I visit him. They've lived all over the world because his dad's in the military. So they've been in Germany. We saw him in Germany, in Puerto Rico. They're in like back in the States now. So the last time I saw him was in Germany. And like, so I have a picture with him and it's funny because like his dad's blonde hair, blue eyes. And I'm like, hazel brown eyes and like dark curly hair. And he has the dominant genes, dark curly hair, like brown eyes, like looks like me, or like my little brother that like looks like me. So
that's super funny.
It's pretty funny. So eventually he's gonna be like, wait a minute.
Just tell him to listen to this podcast, and then at the end, surprise, surprise, it's me.
Well, and actually going back to like nature versus nurture, when we visited them in Puerto Rico, we all went to the beach and our plan and like snorkeling and throwing the balls around on the sand and running. And it's funny, I could watch this boy and like his like attitude, like stubbornness and just his mannerisms. It was me. Like I was like, whoa, oh my God, that's me. You know, like, whoa, oh geez, like you could totally, even my husband was like, holy crap, like that's you. Like his facial expressions too, like some of that stuff was coming out and I'm like, I haven't seen this kid since he was a baby. Like it had been years since I'd seen him. So it was like, he couldn't pick up anything from me.
Right.
And like some of the stubbornness would come out and he'd be like, to fight. And I'd be like, sorry, Mom, sorry. Yeah. Feel free to spank that out of him.
Right. That's so funny though. No, it's like that. It's cool because you actually got to like see him like grow up and stuff. Because I feel like for, you know, like a sperm donor or something, you're probably never going to know who ends up having that or whatever. Because I've like thought about that before. I'm like, it would be so like, I don't know, just like loose, open-ended to know that like out there, maybe there's another kid with your genes that you have no idea
you're like
about.
See in the grocery store, you're like, wait a minute.
Right? Yeah, you're always like wondering if there's going to be something, you know?
Yeah. Actually, some of the eggs, because a lot of them weren't good, but
because like they want to take like as many as possible because a lot of times they're not good or whatever.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll try to implant it and it won't stick. So she actually, I think, did 3 implantations before it stuck.
Wow.
But she had froze some, and she even froze some for my husband and I if we needed to use later in the future. And then she asked like, hey, do you want to donate some? And I was all for it, like helping people out. So I might have some.
Hey, never know.
Yeah, but
got some more mini Megans out there.
Look for the curly hair. But yeah, through that, like after that whole thing with like, oh, you had this ovarian hyperstimulation and you have this hormonal imbalance, like it was kind of a scary thing. For years we didn't know if that like was going to mess me up and not be able to have kids. So that was something kind of in the back of our head. Not that we were ready to have kids right away, but, you know, kind of in the back of the head. And with our parents, you know, like, oh, well, are we ever going to see grandkids? So,
right.
Yeah, so that was still Atlanta. I guess I can fast forward to kind of around the time when I met Richard.
Yeah, because obviously you continued down the fitness path, right?
Yep, so I was in Atlanta, graduated with that exercise science degree. I'd been coaching gymnastics.
Where'd you go to school?
Georgia State.
Nice, very cool.
Right downtown, because I was coaching, go Panthers. I was coaching in Douglasville, so it was like something I could drive back and forth to.
Nice.
And I loved coaching, and it was funny when I dated my husband, when we first started dating, I was like, listen, we can never move too far away from gymnastics because I'm going to be doing this the rest of my life. Like, I loved it that much, the thought, like, you know, the naivety, like, this is my life goal, you know? And as I finished up school and started learning about, like, training and all that, and actually people would be like, hey, can you write me a program? Or, hey, can you train with me? And then you start dabbling in that, and my heart kind of shifted from the love of coaching gymnastics to like my newfound, you know, like passion and knowledge that I could use to help people and help people better their lives. And I guess now more of like the adult side. Like, kids, I love you, but let's progress. You know? So that was cool. I got my exercise science degree and ended up just, we actually got an opportunity. With my husband, he was working with somebody, actually the guy downstairs, like years ago. This was like over 10 years ago, and thought we were going to get an opportunity to move to Miami. So we went down there and visited, and we're like, oh man, this place is awesome. And it was cool. And we actually thought we were going to go. And so I kind of like tied up the loose ends at the gymnastics place. And then we were supposed to go that summer, and stuff didn't work out with that business. One of the partners pulled out. And so we ended up not going. But I was like, but I kind of already tied that up, which was cool because, like I said, my heart wasn't there. Mm-hmm. But I'd been working out at the Gold's Gym in Atlanta, downtown.
Nice.
And had wanted to get into figure competitions. It was something I'd seen. And actually, back in the day, it was like fitness was like the big thing. There was no figure. So it was like you had to do like the gymnastic routines and the bikini stuff. And I remember seeing like Miss USA, Fitness USA, I don't even remember what they were, Miss Universe, Fitness Universe, and they would do all the gymnastic-y stuff, and then, so I was like, that would be awesome to do. So when I was at the Gold's Gym, I was kind of like dabbling in that, researching, like, I would love to do this would be cool, and training, And
so it's not just based on the physique, it's also based on like what you can do?
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you had like a routine round, and then you had like your bikini round, and then the overall. So it was cool, and I was like, okay.
That's actually pretty interesting, because I feel like now it's like one or the other.
Yes.
It's like powerlifting or bodybuilding.
Yes.
Like pick one. Like there's not really a, I guess CrossFit, like, but there's not, that's all performance too. There's no aesthetics.
Yeah. So
Definitely not aesthetics.
Definitely not aesthetics. So it was crazy. So I started like training with that and researching, and one of the coaches there was like, one of the personal trainers was like, hey, have you ever thought about competing? And I was like, actually, I've been really researching it. And she was like, I would love to take you on as a client. I'll train you for free, and we can kind of just figure this thing out together. And I was like, let's do it. So we just started doing that.
Because she wanted to like get into that, so she just offered to train you. That's an awesome opportunity.
So she was like, cool, yeah. And I was like, perfect, I'll be your guinea pig. We'll figure this out.
Right.
And then she found out I had an exercise science degree, and she was like, actually, we need some more trainers. She was the only female trainer there, so she was like, you want to train? And I was like, perfect. Switch from that to gymnastics, like from gymnastics to personal training, and started doing that. But right around that time, they started doing the figure competitions. And my shyness and like that low self-esteem was like, I don't even know if I can, get up and like perform and do this routine in front of people.
Yeah, and you've got to do the whole like little shimmies and like all the little stuff.
Well, I was even thinking of like the flipping and like toe touches and backflips. So I was like, so the figure stuff came out, and I was like, okay, well maybe I'll just start with the figure, because that's just bikini and the shimmies and the walk.
Yep.
And then as I get more comfortable, then I'll do the fitness one with the routines. So I started training with that and signed up for a show. And I used to like run races when I was in college, because that was the only thing I like really had time for as far as like, fitness stuff. You're like, so I would sign up for a race, and then
you kind of had to do it.
Yes, because I'm like, I'm not showing up and like dying. So it was kind of the same thing of like, all right, let me pay for this competition, and now I'm in, and start telling people, and
that's very powerful. It's very powerful when you like buy a thing, and so you're like in it or whatever.
And for
you have
me,
a goal to work towards.
Yes, and I'm very stubborn, and so for me and my personality to say I'm going to do something, and I'm telling everybody, and there comes that performance thing of like, I don't want to let people down. Like they're expecting me to show up and do this thing, so then I have that outside pressure, which can be good, can be bad too, but it can be good. So when I hadn't signed up for that, and honestly, my goal was to get on stage and not wet my pants, because I was that terrified of doing the little shimmies and the walks. And so I did my first show, and it was a smaller, just like local show, and ended up placing like third. And I was like,
that's awesome.
That's not bad. So it was cool. And there was 2 other girls that started like training around the same time I was, and so I talked to them about competing, and my coach was like, hey, you guys should all come on, I'll train you too. So we would all train together and work out, and we ended up doing like 2 more shows together that year.
What was like, sorry to interrupt, but like, what was the, I guess, like draw to that? Because like you said, it interested you or whatever, but what was like the reason behind it? Because I think a lot of people, of course, like they just want to like look good in the mirror. They want to feel confident in how they look. Some people obviously, like, you're kind of saying with the routine side of things, they want to be functional or whatever. Yes. What was like the reason behind like gravitating towards that for you?
Yeah, definitely. It comes down to, one of the big factors was being able to showcase what I was doing in the gym, and transforming my body. So like early on, remember I told you I really enjoyed like the strength training part and feeling strong and empowered, like in the gymnastics and doing all the pull-ups and push-ups, and it made me feel tough and confident that like, hey, I can do pull-ups, guys can do pull-ups, I can do pull-ups, I can do push-ups. And so it was kind of the thing of like being able to showcase all the hard work I put in, like, because nobody's in the gym with you like watching you going, oh yeah, good job, that's awesome. You
nice
can
form.
you can deadlift this and leg press this. That's great. Here's a medal. So and I guess coming back to
getting the recognition.
Recognition, because I competed in gymnastics, and so it's kind of like, I'd like something to compete again. Like what can I do? And that's good. And as you start training, you do get driven with that, like, wow, my body's starting to transform and look amazing, like, cool. And that, as you see those changes, it pushes you to work harder and drive. So I mean, going back to that low self-esteem thing, it's like, okay, cool. I'm getting that body that, you know, people like look up to, and, you know, not just the like, it was good that I transformed from I want to be the skinny girl, where that was like my image that I had in my head when I was younger, like the skinny model physique looking thing. Like I want to starve and be super skinny, to like, now I'm like, oh, I like this muscle look, the strong look, and the strong women feeling empowered. This looks awesome. I'm going to do this. So that like really drove me, and the strength that I was getting in the gym made me feel more confident and powerful. So getting other women like that I met in the gym, like, hey, you should do this too. This is awesome. You know, this is like a magic drug. I feel amazing. And, you know, it helped. So it was cool to like be able to recruit people. Actually started like a competition team, like with my coach. We started kept recruiting girls, and like eventually it kind of became my like thing. And Richard, we were pulling him in to compete, like, hey, you could do bodybuilding competitions too. So we had about 12, mostly girls, 2 guys like that we had pulled in, that we all started training together when we could, and going to competitions, and we'd help each other prep with the food and the diets and the training and the, you know, the tanning and all that stuff. And
it's good to have a team around you with that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. And you know, like,
it's hard to go to like, because I've gone to some bodybuilding shows before, like I could see how it'd be really hard to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Like when you're kind of just like winging it your first time or whatever.
Absolutely.
And maybe you have a coach or whatever, but like doing everything, there's a lot of stuff that you don't know. And
absolutely. And even down to the like training. Like I remember my first time setting foot in a Gold's Gym when I was like in high school, and being on the cardio machine, watching other people use the machines, going, okay, I'm just going to see what they're doing. And then you go over there and you're like looking at the diagram and trying not to let people know that you're looking at the diagram on how to use the machine. So
but luckily now, like there's so many like YouTube videos and stuff. Like YouTube is like huge for that, because sometimes I'll be in the gym and like, am I doing the right form here? Like, and I'll like pull up a video real quick. I'm like, hopefully no one's looking at me watching this video.
Let me look in the mirror and make sure, okay, looks good.
Yeah, or
it's
like
awesome.
you have like a list of exercises you need to do, like, what is that? And you like Google it real fast and find out.
Yes, absolutely. And well, this was back before you could get like YouTube on your phone. Like, you could do it back on your computer, but then you'd have to be like, okay, let me remember it. Yeah.
Draw a sketch.
Yes. So it was actually awesome to like be able to train with your friends, and like, because that was when I had fun. Like I love gymnastics, so to be able to have like a physical outlet as I was older, and then share it, like it's like a playtime, you know, like share it with your friends. Like when I met Richard, I was like, come play with us at the gym. We have so much fun, because we would have so much fun versus, you know, like going in there by yourself and you're like, okay, did my set, let me rest. All right, let's do it again. Change the weight.
My thing is like when I work out by myself too, I'm like, I'm supposed to do 5 sets, but I'll just do 4.
Yes.
You know, like, or whatever.
Absolutely.
When you work out with a friend, like, you're doing the sets.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're not letting you get away with it. Or like, oh, no, that was
especially because you're kind of like trying to like outdo the other guy too and stuff.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I started like training with all these girls, and like, we would like be stronger than some of the guys that would come in. So like, and that was our thing. Like I said, it was that female empowerment thing. Like, oh, we can be strong. And it feels good to be strong, and it feels good to lift this weight and know that I can lift this weight. And so it's funny. Guys would come work out with us and be like, no, pass me those 50s. You done with that? Like, you know, they'd be like, whoa, that's awesome. You know, get like mad respect, and
that's awesome.
It feels good versus just like, I'm just gonna do cardio.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was a lot of fun. And so we had like we called it the team heat, and we just had like that bond and community, and it was just a very neat thing that I craved, you know, and it's very cool to see how that continues later on. And it's just, I think it's a natural thing that everybody just craves having that connection with other people, and almost like a tribe, you know, like that tribal community. I don't think we were meant as humans to be alone and
definitely
to go
not.
about this and, you know, by ourselves.
Yeah, I think the tribe thing definitely naturally happens a lot in fitness communities. Like you see it a lot in like obstacle course racing and stuff. Like those OCR people are like so freaking tight knit and stuff, because like when you're doing the races you have to like help your friend over the obstacles, and like you know it's like intense and stuff.
Well, and you're
going through like a hard thing together.
Absolutely.
Achieving like this cool thing, and then at the end you celebrate together and all that.
Absolutely. And that's something I didn't recognize really until I got into CrossFit. And it's that thing of like, it's a group class. You're all doing the workout. You're suffering together. You're like dying together, you know, like, but then you finish and you've all succeeded, you know, no matter what level you're at, you made it through the workout and you didn't quit and you succeeded and everybody's like, yay, we did it together. And like through that, a crazy bond develops, like you see in the OCR, like, and it's all, you see it in military, you know, like those platoons and people that go to war
That's
together.
one thing that I didn't understand about like fraternity hazing. Like that.
Me neither. Like, why would you do that?
Like that's awful. But like literally because you went through this like awful time together, you become like brothers because you had to like do all this really shitty stuff.
Absolutely.
And basically be like tortured or whatever.
But then it's like, hey, ride or die. Like, this is my brother. Like,
and once you do something that's like super hard, then it puts into perspective like, oh, I've already done that. Then I can easily do that or whatever. And like it just puts, like for example, I'm an Eagle Scout in Boy Scouts. So it's like you have to do a lot of stuff, you know, to get there. And so like a lot of times what they would say is like, you know, the Eagle Scout project is like this final big project. And they would always tell all these stories about like, oh yeah, Eagle Scouts always do amazing in business later on, blah, 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 because they've had to do like this big project like as a young guy. And so like encountering another big project doesn't intimidate them as much because they already kind of like know how to do
plan
something
and
like
organize and push past like the fear or failure. Or,
or like, you know, just doing anything hard, you know, you can always look back and be like, well, dang, like I accomplished that. So this is like a piece of cake.
Absolutely. And, you know, again, that's what I felt like with CrossFit. It was like, because when we worked out with like my girlfriends and, you know, the guys that would come join us, like it was awesome and it was fun and it was challenging. But like when I got into CrossFit, it was like a different intensity. Like you're running against the clock and it's you against you, but you have all these people around you and it's like this timed, almost like a battlefield, you know, like the clock starts 3, 2, 1, go. And like you just have to go and like push and survive. And then you get done, you're like, you know, like, holy crap. Like I just pushed super hard because I have my tribe around me and everybody else is pushing, so I don't want to let them down and I want to keep going. And, you know, the performance driven me is like, I got to keep up, you know, like I got to keep up with this guy. And I
can't be the weak link.
I can't be the weak link. I got to go, you know, and so pushing through that. And then you get done, maybe it's a 20-minute workout and you're like, holy crap, I just did that. And then you're like, okay, I got to go to work and do this big project. And it's like, no big deal. Like I just survived war. Like
literally.
I'm fine, guys. This your little stress freak out that you're having because this project's not going to make the deadline. I'm okay.
Right?
You know?
No, that's what I recently started doing like a lot of yoga. Like that is one thing that like in the beginning it was like super duper hard because like hot and you're starting to freak out a little bit and like you're like there's people in there that are like way better than you, and so like at the end you're kind of just like, you know, that problem that you were thinking about at the beginning of the day, it's almost just like whatever, dude. I already sat in this super hot class and like almost freaked out like 20 times, you know.
Well, and that's a good example too. And like same thing with doing like CrossFit or OCR, like it's so mental. You know, you're in that yoga studio and like suffering and dying and hot and like your muscles are shaking and you're trying to hold this pose and not fall over, and like easily you could be like, oh, well, I'm just gonna come down. I'm gonna come down to this pose and I'm gonna just get some water and relax.
I've tried to do like yoga in my house, like with like a YouTube video, and I always freaking like stop or like do something early or quit a pose early. But when you're in the class, you have like other people around you. You don't want to look like that guy.
Absolutely.
and that even like a couple of days ago, we were hiking the Grand Canyon. All of us like went down the hill. Obviously, it's super easy to go down into the canyon. Going back up is a whole different story.
And you don't want to be the one like, hey, let's stop and rest.
No, but it was so true. Like I was thinking about it. I'm like, if I had to do that hike by myself, it probably would have taken me twice as long. Just because I did not, if I wouldn't have had the other guys like pacing me and keeping up and like, you know, trying to not be the slowest guy and all that stuff. It's like,
again, that like tribe mentality, like, you know, you're stronger with more people, stronger together, which is crazy. And then to the mental thing of like, yeah, I could just easily quit if I'm by myself, but you're with the other people. And it becomes that mental battle, like, you know, like, oh, I'm going to stop and rest. I'm not, you know, like, and if you don't, you get that mental strength, not only are you getting physically stronger, but you're getting that mental strength, which does translate into the world,
And I think like the biggest thing for me is not thinking about like, oh my gosh, this is how far I have to go. It's like, you just have to think about like,
chunks.
Can I take one more step? Can I get up to that little top of that little hill? Okay, cool. I got there. Now can I get to that top of that little hill?
Yes.
Let's go.
Break it down into small goals. Oh my
Exactly.
God. Again, it's life goals.
Yep, literally.
Yeah. So, actually going back to the figure competition stuff, and my eating disorder, like it had been kind of suppressed, and like then I start messing. I tell people it was like playing with fire. You know, like I'm counting and I'm tracking and I'm weighing and measuring all my food, and like that's what you need to do to figure out how your body is going to change into what you want it. But then there's also that like control factor and the, like the obsessing. And so I would
and you're like, what if I go a little bit less or like stretch it just a little bit or whatever?
Absolutely. Like I would be so hardcore. Like once I set up that date and like to the end to when I competed, hardcore, like no cheating. Like
wow.
Once I made it to where I knew like, okay, 6 weeks out, I can't cheat at all. Like it was hardcore, and I would do that. Like I earned my pro card the next year after competing. I did 3 competitions that first year, and then I ended up having to gain some weight because I was too skinny. I didn't have enough muscle mass.
Wow, yeah.
So gained weight in the off season, and then that next season ended up getting my pro card because I was so like obsessed. I'm gonna do this, And I was fine like doing that comp prep. It was good. I was in control, and then it was like as soon as I was done.
What do you do with yourself?
What do you do with yourself? And for me, the big thing was like people looking at me, and I'm like, you start to see yourself a certain way, like carved out and shredded, which is you can't maintain that very long. It's a temporary thing.
And it's like almost like you're like, oh my gosh, if I peaked, now I'm going down, now I'm getting fat. Oh my gosh, I hate myself, blah, blah, blah.
Exactly. And for me, so it's like you start seeing yourself for those last couple weeks, you're pretty shredded, you know, and then you get out of and you're back into normal again, but your normal still looks better than, 95% of people are still like, oh, you look awesome, you look great. But in your head, you're like, I'm not shredded. I bet they think I'm fat. They probably think that I'm like, eating ice cream.
And when you see yourself in the mirror, you're like noticing all the tiny little like, oh my gosh, my arms look so small or like whatever.
Yeah. So I would go through that battle, and then that eating disorder would pick back up again. And like it was like that darkness. And I learned through that it was that focus on the aesthetics that was dangerous for me. So after 3 years of competing, I was actually doing boot camps on the side, and they just started as for me and my competition team of like, hey, let's add in a Saturday of training and let's go to Piedmont Park, or it was Grady High School before they closed that off. But we would go there, and like I would run like a free boot camp, and they would bring friends and people from work, and it turned into like a pretty big following. It was pretty fun. Again, that's the cool. Tribal thing, like, hey, we're all working out and we're suffering, but it's so much fun. And so we would do that, and that was awesome. So that boot camp actually kind of got me into like, oh man, I love this the performance thing, and when I got the opportunity to do CrossFit, I was like, oh, this is kind of like boot camp with toys, like I really like this. And the thing of CrossFit, it's like we said earlier, it's not aesthetics, like it's performance driven.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, nobody cares what you look like as long as you can lift and do the gymnastics and do this and like.
But I feel like CrossFit is a little bit more focused on aesthetics than like traditional powerlifting. You know what I mean? Because like you're still motivated by your looks in your personal life or whatever, it's like no one cares what you look like when you're doing the thing, but like at the end of the day you still want to look good.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of powerlifters that literally don't care.
No, and I mean, to them, their sport is its power. It's not 100%. That cardio and that cardiovascular output that they have to do. So because CrossFit incorporates that, when you start incorporating that cardiovascular,
that's actually very true.
It shreds that fat. So you do have the strength of the powerlifter, but the powerlifter doesn't have to get his heart rate up and do like that cardio version. You know, like there's actually an Olympic lifter, and he's like, sure, I do cardio. It's 10 reps of his lift.
Yeah. Powerlifters are kind of nuts sometimes when you start talking to them.
Crazy.
They're kind of crazy.
In a fun way.
We still love them.
We still love them. Yeah, so for CrossFit, I remember it took like a whole year before I could transition my brain from the aesthetics of like still like lifting my shirt up and being like, okay, I still got some abs, or oh, I'm still shredded, you know, like to the point where I didn't care, and it was more like, oh, how many kipping pull-ups can I do in a row? Oh, how much can I snatch? How much can I clean and jerk? You know, like where the focus went from what do I look like to what can I do? And to me, that was very healing.
Yeah, it's very productive, I feel like.
Yeah, and that was when my eating disorder kind of went away. It was just like, got rid of that, didn't have that focus. And in figure competitions, there's a very big gray area. You know, like I ended up getting my pro card and judging in like natural competitions, and there's a fine line. Like it's somebody's opinion on like, especially figure, you know, like you can't be too shredded, but you can't be too not shredded. And you want to look a certain way, but it also depends on your head judge, you know, like if your head judge comes from a bodybuilding background, he probably wants more shredded, you know? If your judge comes from like more bikini background, then they don't want as shredded. So it's
and like... and the look that they're looking for changes from competition to competition and whatever.
Absolutely. So like sometimes I'd walk out of shows and people would have been like, no, you had that. I don't know. And then you talk to the head judge and they're like, well, you know, you need to bring this, you know, a little more shredded, or, oh, you're a little too shredded. And you're like, oh, geez, you know, how do you win?
Yeah. Versus... You're too shredded for this bodybuilding competition. That's silly.
Yeah. Well, because it was figure, like I said. So you still had to have the feminine look. You can't be too vascular and shredded.
Hey, that's pretty, it's pretty controversial these days.
Yeah. Where like bodybuilding is like, shred as much as I can, you know, paper thin skin.
Yeah.
But then again, at CrossFit competitions and started doing that, and it was like, no, it's either a rep or it's not. Like there's a tiny little gray area, but it's like you either locked it out or you didn't lock it out. So to me that was awesome, because it was a lot more like less.
And and you can maintain that, you know, like that level. Whereas like with bodybuilding, you have to hit that like pinnacle, and you can't really maintain that level, or you're gonna die.
Death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially like I know for women, especially like it's not healthy to stay that low of body fat, because you actually need a certain amount.
Absolutely.
To keep your hormones balanced and everything.
Yeah. Or you screw everything up.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I went from Atlanta and ended up in Miami, and that's kind of where my CrossFit journey really started. I went to a big national competition with some of my girls. I actually wasn't competing at that one because it was NPC. It wasn't natural divisions, which I had a pro card in. And it was in Hollywood, Florida. And I ended up meeting one of the like gym manager owners from Gold's Gym in South Beach, and just chatted with him for like 5 minutes. We exchanged information, and he was like, hey, have you ever thought about coming down to Miami? And I was like, actually, a couple years ago, my husband and I were thinking of moving down there, and it just didn't work out. And he was like, well, if you ever come down here, you have a job. I was like, oh, okay. Sweet. Cool. So, actually in 2008, my mom passed away in like a tragic car accident. And
wow.
Yeah, it was just one of those things. It's like, I mean, it was instant, so didn't get to say goodbye. It wasn't like a prep thing. And I also had a best friend that same year that was in a car wreck. He was in intensive care for a week and ended up passing. So that was actually the year I got my pro card. And I remember taking all that, you know, pent up sadness and aggression and energy, and like taking it to the gym, and like being in the squat rack with like tears going down and just pushing as hard as I could. And
wow.
Yeah, was able to just channel that into you know, like, all right, I'm going to put it out in here. And so with that, when the opportunity came up to move to Miami, it was kind of like, you know, like a fresh start. I would like to, let's just go see what this looks like, and, you know, kind of get away from all these memories that I had here with my mom. And so we ended up going down and visiting, my husband and I, and it was the year the housing boom had like dropped. And so we were able to score like a nice condo on the water, like for cheap, dirt cheap.
That's
and
awesome.
It was just beautiful. And, you know, being on the water is just one of those things that's like peaceful and tranquil. And the guy from Gold, it was actually right down the street from Gold's Gym, and he was like, all right, you have a job, let's go. So
Sweet.
Started working there, and then about 6 months later, a CrossFit gym opened up like right down the street, literally right across the street from our apartment building. And so I was like, oh, I love this. I went and checked it out, and like I said, I was like, boot camp with toys, this is awesome. And plus being at the Gold's Gym, I was by myself, like my girls weren't there anymore, Richard wasn't there, people weren't there to play, and it just wasn't the same. It was different. It was a lot more like, hey, we're on steroids and the huge bodybuilders, and people were more intense and into that kind of thing. So I started working out at that CrossFit gym and found that little tribe and the community that I loved and missed. And they like offered me a job right away. So through transitioning out of that, I ended up going with them, which was awesome. And the Gold's Gym ended up closing down anyway. It was kind of like that mecca, like the time when all like the Gold's Gyms, like the franchise changed and they closed down. So bittersweet, but it was another one of those things like gymnastics. Like my time was done. My heart wasn't there. I would go and work out and like, it just wasn't the same. My boss was like, do another competition. I signed up for another competition, and it was just like, I just don't even enjoy it. I don't have my tribe. I don't have my girls. Like, it's not the same. And so started doing CrossFit and coaching, and got approached by one of the owners, and this CrossFit gym in Miami Beach actually was the first Reebok affiliate.
Oh, wow.
Outside of like the headquarters of Reebok. So these guys had the opportunity to open one in New York because they were like flagship cities.
Was the deal with that? So like Reebok partnered with because I think a lot of people don't realize that CrossFit is like a licensed like thing.
It's like a franchise, kind of like a Gold's Gym. Like you could have opened a Gold's Gym, but you had to pay the franchising fee to use the name and the logos and all that good stuff. So
like it's not like CrossFit isn't like the term bodybuilding isn't like a licensed term, but like CrossFit is like an actual thing that was invented and like licensed.
Yes. So it's like, hey, if you want to use this name, kind of like a Papa John's. If you want to go to Papa John's, you have to pay in.
Yeah, or like Bikram yoga or whatever. It's like, if you want to use the name Bikram or whatever, you got to pay.
Absolutely.
Or you can like just do the same stuff and call it a different name, but you don't have the affiliation.
So CrossFit, that, started getting big around then, and you could go take your course, become a coach, and then through that and
Reebok partnered with the company CrossFit? Is that what the deal was?
They did like a little partnership.
And that like recently ended, right? Or something?
I think this is the last year.
I was going to say, I think it was like
Nike,
kind of...
Under Armour, all these other things are like, hey, let us get in.
What up?
And it was kind of the thing that brought Reebok back. And they looked at the Miami Beach one and were like, hey, this would be a good city because it's so much traffic internationally. Let's try this out. So they came down there and tested it out. I remember doing a workout with like the CEO, the coaches got to, and it was like a sales pitch thing for the Reebok company that they put together. And we're like, hey, this is what we're thinking of doing. What do you think? So that gym became the first Reebok affiliate, and it was cool. And because the Reebok was like, you guys did a good job with this, a couple months later, they were like, how about New York? Another flagship thing. So the owner approached me and was like, hey, what do you think about relocating? And I was like, my husband and I just moved to South Beach recently. Like, I think it's just been a year. Like, we live in paradise. Coming from Atlanta, there's no beach in Atlanta, way down, but you never get to that one, So it's like looking at the water, and it's just paradise, and I love hot weather, so it's perfect, and it's tropical and international. And I was like, this is paradise. We're not leaving, whatever. And so I went home, and my husband was like, I told him, and he was like, well, did you even ask where? And I'm like, no. I mean, we love it. So he was like, you should probably ask. So I went back the next day and talked to my boss, and he was like, so we have this opportunity to open up a CrossFit gym with Reebok on 5th Avenue, in New York. We'd like for you to be head trainer, manager, help run this thing, get it going and set up, and, great opportunities. We're going to, Alicia Keys will train here, and the celebrities are like, oh, New York, you have all this. So I was like, all right, stubborn me. I was like, fine, I'll give it 1 year. If it sucks, I'm coming back. And they're like, fair. So we ended up moving up there.
Did you keep your condo?
We did.
Okay,
so
cool.
we kept it, and actually a friend of ours that was coaching at the gym like rented it from us. So it was perfect. Like I said, it was like
I was going to say, because you got such a good deal. You don't want to give that up.
No, held on to that. Plus I was like, I'm not sure. This is New York.
Yeah.
And I think if we had gone from Atlanta to New York versus Miami to New York, the transition would have been better. I probably could have stayed longer. But like Miami is so opposite of New York. It's like laid back. It's
literally
chill.
the complete
It's
opposite.
Vacation time all the time. Everybody's on vacation, you know. It's like chill.
In New York, no one's ever on vacation time ever.
Oh my God. And the pace of
You have
life
to
is
escape.
like la 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 la, you know, like it's crazy. I remember, perfect example, you get in the Starbucks line and like it's a super long line and you're like, oh God, it's gonna take forever. But they are like boom, boom, boom. Somebody's taking your line or your order in the line, and like you're out of there in like less than 5 minutes. You go to the South Beach Starbucks and like
It takes you 30 minutes.
yes, a line that's like even half the length, and people are just like, oh, you know, and they call it like Latin time down there.
Yeah,
it's so funny, but it's just, you know, in Atlanta you have CP time. You know, my girlfriends who are black taught me that. No, it's a CP time, girl. I'm always on CP time. And in Miami it was Latin time, so I got used to that, and the warm, beautiful weather. So going to New York, I tell people, they're like, how long are you living in New York? And I was like, 3 winters. You know, and it was a great place. Yeah, it was a great place to live. Like the first year was amazing, great experience, exciting, new restaurants, awesome people. But yeah, like you said the right word, like hardened. I remember when we went up there to look for a place to live before we moved, we're with like the real estate guy and he's like showing us apartments and I'm like skipping down the street all smiling, like this is awesome, feeling the energy and the excitement. Like
what are you so smiley about?
And he said, I give you 2 months and that smile will be gone. Literally. I was like, that's not cool. And I'm like, no, it won't. You know, and it's like,
and then year 3, you're like,
year 3, I'm like, the snow sucks. I hate this. It's cold and dark and dreary. Like, we went up there like February, and the gym didn't open until August because of setbacks and stuff. So like we moved up there because my boss was like, we need you up here now. So we get up there and a bunch of stuff went crazy with construction. And so we're up there in the winter, like by ourselves. Like my husband and I are the only one that's moved because the bosses went up there, but then they were like, nothing's happening right now. We're going to go back and run Miami, you know? And we ended up getting like seasonal depression. Like it was,
it's totally a thing.
Never heard of it. But I remember just like, we wanted to sleep all the time. I'd find myself like sad and like crying. And I told one of our doctor friends who came up there and visited, and he was like, you have seasonal depression. I was like, what is that? You know, like even in Georgia, I don't think you get it. You know, because even when it's cold, there's sunshine.
You're still fine.
You know? So they're like, no, you have to get one of these lamps and you just sit in front of it for like 10, 15 minutes a day and get like artificial sunlight. Yeah. It definitely helps.
Did it work?
Yeah.
Whoa.
But I'm like, this is retarded. Why do people live someplace where they have to have something that...
a lamp that makes them feel better. Yeah. So, no, I think that's also the reason why like people from up north are so like, oh yeah, Boston baby, or like, oh yeah, New York, or whatever. They're like all like a tribe because they've like suffered the winters together. You know, it's like, oh, these southern boys don't know what we're talking about or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's literally like they've like suffered this winter every year together.
Like
or whatever.
they laugh at us like when the snow comes in. They're like, oh, predicted snow, and everybody buys the bread and the milk from the store and is like frantic. And then there's like 2 inches on the ground and we're like, oh, everything's closed. And then and Boston and the Northeast, they're like, what are you guys doing? It's just your snow plow out and
salt the roads and shut up.
You little babies.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. But New York was fun. It was definitely lots of opportunities up there. Like I was on the Kelly and Michael show as like a CrossFit expert.
Whoa, that's cool.
Being a flagship
Was
gym.
that like a kind of like, when you were there, were you kind of like, wait, what? Like...
again, I was backstage going, please don't wet my pants. Like, like,
how did I get here?
Yes. Well, and the opportunity first came up and the producers like called the front desk girl and she goes, oh, I've got the perfect person for you, yada, yada. And so she told me and I was like, like I'm doubting myself. Like, no, maybe this other coach should do it. Like, I don't know. And, it was one of those things like I'm scared shitless to do it. But then once I did it, it was awesome and it felt good and I had that experience and
that's really cool. Are you familiar with Tim Ferriss?
I love Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome.
Like one of the things that like really resonated with me when I first read like the 4-Hour Work Week is like how easily you can become like a quote unquote expert in something just by like doing a few things.
Yeah.
Like people, for me, for example, it's like a year ago I didn't even have a podcast, and now people are like coming to me with all these podcast questions and stuff, and
You're
it's
the
like
podcast expert.
I'm the podcast dude. It's like, and it's like, well, I guess kind of. I've done like 90 episodes. Like
You're definitely more of an expert than me on a podcast.
At what point do you become an expert?
Yeah.
And that's like a weird thing. Like I totally get imposter syndrome with stuff like that all the time, where I'm always like afraid that people are gonna like find out that I'm not like an expert, or like they're gonna find out that I'm a poser or whatever. But
still, right? Like on all kinds of stuff I do that. And it does come down to like having that confidence to be like, I do know all this stuff and I am kind of an expert, but there's always more to learn. Like Tim Ferriss, I remember him saying one time, always be a white belt, and so there's always things to learn, and it's okay to say, I don't know that. Let's go find that out. Let's go ask another expert who might be more their specialty or their interest.
My friend Jamie, he's a trainer, and he was saying that like in his pre-assessment, he normally asks his client, because he works at kind of like it's called, I think the gym that he was working at the time was called UFit. It's kind of like Planet Fitness or something, like kind of a beginner level. Like he's getting a lot of people that are just like kind of just beginning their fitness journey. And so he would ask them like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate your like knowledge of fitness? And like he said all the time, you'd get like 7s and 8s from these people that were like obese. Yeah. And he's like, well, why do you say that? And they're like, well, like I took, some like PE in high school or whatever, like he literally said he would get answers like that. And he's like, well, just to put it in perspective, like I would personally rate myself probably like a 5 or a 6.
Yeah.
Because like, even though I'm here, like I know there's so many areas that I like don't know anything about and like still need to know, and blah blah blah, and like, oh well, I guess when you put it that way, maybe I'm like a 1 or a 2, it's like, and so it's kind of funny, because like you said, it's like I'm always doubting myself, but I don't give myself enough credit, and there's some people out there that give themselves way too much credit.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, the whole like expert thing, I remember, and it was because CrossFit that's when it like boomed, and everybody's like, oh my god, CrossFit, it's on like magazine covers, and like,
it's like this new sexy thing or whatever.
And so we had one of the largest CrossFit gyms, and because it was Reebok branded, it kind of gave it that credibility, and run Fifth Avenue. So
back from the dead, Reebok.
Exactly. Bring out those
cool
pumps again.
Yeah, bring out the pumps.
Yes. So we got contacted all the time by like magazines and stuff, and
that's cool.
Got to write some articles with like workouts, and it'd always be like, Megan, the CrossFit expert, and same thing, like I guess
say that.
Yeah, please don't say that around like these other like real CrossFit experts,
right? Yeah, because it's like Andrew Deitch podcast expert. I'm like, oh god, I hope no one from the podcast world reads this or whatever, because I'm probably making a fool of myself or something.
What is that microphone you're using? Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah, well that's not to go too deep in it, but it's like, at the end of the day, your equipment only can make a good enough show. It's like, I've got like a very basic setup, but it's like you could have the most expensive equipment in the world, but still have a show that totally sucks.
Yeah.
And I think people get way too caught up in that, especially like, in video stuff. They want to get the best camera because they think it's going to create the best video. And it's like, but you suck at storytelling, so your video blows. Yeah. Like, it's like, or you're terrible at editing, so it's literally crap. Yeah. And so and that can be applied to like anything in life. But
that's why I don't have a Mac computer. I'm like, I don't need all that. Like,
right?
I'm never going to use all that stuff that it can do. So I'm just going to get, a little cheapy Windows. So.
Yeah. or even now, like people have those like Chromebooks that are literally just like internet based, because it's like, I'm only going to use this for like Facebook and emails. Like I don't really need to
Let's be honest. What are we doing on here?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Stop kidding yourself.
So I guess I also want to touch back on like the training, like how I found like with training gymnastics, how it made me feel good because I was helpful to people and could help them feel accomplished and reach these goals, and that carried on through the personal training and then the girls and guys I competed with, and being able to, I guess, recognize also those, like we said, that if you have that darkness, you can you've been through the darkness, you can kind of see that and recognize it, and also be a guiding light and say, hey, I've been there. Like, I can make it out, like, then you can make it out. And it was amazing how people were attracted to me, just by seeing that, like, I inspired and motivated people just by they could connect with me on like a easy personal level. Like, I was very easy to connect with. Like, hey, Richard, valet boy, hey, let's come work out. Like I loved connecting with people, big people person, and I loved, my heart has always been help people, like empower them, help them see that, like, you're
like an evangelist for fitness. It's like you found fitness and like it empowered you.
Absolutely.
So you wanted to spread that to as many people as possible.
Like, I'm like, this, like I said, this is the magic pill. This is amazing. And like, this makes me feel amazing. So I want to help you find that it makes you feel amazing.
Totally.
And so that was something that I was able to really do, like find these people that struggled with the, like the weight and whatever, and like really connect on them heart to heart. Like, I've been there, I've struggled. Maybe I never had the fat girl story, never, but I had the opposite, the opposite extreme, and I had the low self-esteem just like you did, and not feeling significant and valued, and not having the self-worth and the self-love, but I just did it a different way.
Exactly.
So being able to connect with people on that and be real and be authentic, like it really drew people to me and gave me that opportunity to pass on that knowledge and that love, and just it made me feel great that I could like help people and love on people and be like, no, you can do this, and like, it's awesome that I had the avenues to do that through like the gymnastics with little kids, but then with personal training, and then CrossFit, because everybody has issues and things that they're dealing with in darkness, and it manifests in those symptoms. And one of the symptoms is struggling with like your weight, or unhealthiness. And where do you show up? You show up at a gym, or you show up at like with a personal trainer. And so that gave me that opportunity to be like, hey, let's focus on this. Let's set some goals, and but then also dig a little deeper and be like, okay, well, you're obese, or you've been working at this goal, or you keep sliding back. What's really going on? Let's dig in, like, why can't you keep reaching these goals? Why do you keep selling yourself short, or setting yourself up for failure? And it's, through that darkness, and I say like my old woman wisdom, because now I'm 38 and I've gone through a lot of stuff that I'm able to share with people, like, hey, like, and see that, like, hey, let's dig in. Like, oh, your mom told you were fat. Like, we got to go back and we've got to correct that thought in your head and change where you believe that.
Totally.
Because then, and only then, are you going to be like, I'm worthy of love, and I'm worthy, and I have this self-worth that I can be a healthy, beautiful person that I love and am proud of, and take care of myself.
Because like, I think people from a young age, you get all those like things implanted, like you're the fat kid, or you're the short kid, or you're the small kid, or you're the tall kid, or you're the skinny kid, or whatever. And so you embody that as like a trait versus like versus like taking it in as like a state that you're at, but not like a permanent state.
Absolutely.
Like when I was younger, I was always like the shortest and smallest. And so like even today, like I still like envision myself sometimes as like this, like the smallest person in the group, or like the shortest person in the group. And I'm like, wait a second, no, I'm not. Or like, I'm like normal size or whatever, but like.
And it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. But like, you still have those like really deep implanted things that are hard to uproot. And sometimes like, it's weird because, you look yourself in the mirror and you're like, wait a second. I'm not that small, or I'm not that short, or whatever. Yeah. But like, it's just so like in your brain that
it's ingrained.
Yeah, and you feel unworthy. Like a lot of people like they can't lose the weight simply because like they don't even believe that they could ever be not fat or not that.
Yes. Or that they're deserving of being in a body that they love and is healthy. And like you're saying, it's embedded in most people, like at a young age, and some people don't even know where it came from. And so it's like, digging back to like, well, where did that first thought come from that you were small? Did somebody pick on you because you were small? Like,
or like, you got picked last at recess or whatever, or like, you were like, for me, I remember I was like the youngest in my grade. Like I had like a summer birthday. So it's either my parents put me in the older grade and I was the youngest, or they put me a grade behind and I was like the oldest, you know? So there's like a choice to make. And it's like, well, if you put him in the older grade, then he's going to progress faster and he's going to be like smarter, younger kind of, because he's like ahead.
Yes.
Or, you know, or you can move him down and then he's like the smartest of the group and like the biggest of the group and all. And it totally messes with you because it's like, you don't even realize like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting picked last, I'm the smallest, but like, yeah, but also the guys that are the biggest are like a full year ahead of you or more.
Yeah.
And when you're a young child, like a year is so much.
It is.
Like there's so much that happens in a year of development.
There was actually a study done with like hockey players.
Yep, it was from Malcolm Gladwell's book.
And that's what it was. It was like those kids are like born in like that January, whatever time, where they had that full extra year. They were bigger and they were stronger, and so they progressed more. And yeah, it's very fascinating. Interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah, and going back to like nature versus nurture stuff, it's like, okay, well, probably those kids that were really good were, you know, they might have been a little bit of genetics, but also it was just like the timing maturity of level. When they were born and the grade level they were in and all that, like
muscle maturity and you know, skills and yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah.
But to go back, so what happened after New York? Because you went to New York, that was all awesome and stuff, and then how did you end up?
So
after that?
Yeah, you know, my boss knew that I just didn't love it, that I'd lost the love of the city. Like I said, after a year, I was like, okay, this is done. But again, I developed that tribe there, that community. Like in the winter, you don't really go anywhere except to the gym to hang out with your friends and train. And I ended up competing. We had a competition team. So we would just train together. And because of those people and all the members that I developed that close relationship to, I stayed for as long as I did. If I didn't have that, if it was just me working a desk job up there and not having that whole community like closeness, I would have left after a year.
Yeah. I think that's what keeps people in a lot of jobs that they don't like is like they like their coworkers.
Yes. And you're comfortable and you know the routine.
And you kind of like hate it all together.
Yes, exactly. Like, oh, this is like New York. It's cold. It's awful, but we're going to get in here. We're going to get an awesome workout and go eat together. It'd be awesome. But so they offered me like a position back in Miami. So we moved back to Miami and I was managing 3 of the CrossFit gyms they had there. Didn't love the managing position. It was I was like, yeah, it'll be cool and I'll learn something new, like being a regional manager and learning stuff. And I tried and learned a lot, but it just wasn't my heart. Like one of the office was connected to one of the gyms and my boss knew how much I loved coaching and actually made it mandatory for me to go next door and like help coach a class like once a week. Because I'd come back and be like, whoa! Because that connection, again, like I loved being able to help people. And like in a CrossFit class, for me, that gave me like more excitement to be able to help 30 people versus one person in a personal training session. You know, so I love that, to be able to go around and be like, hey, you're going to do this. And oh, you're so close to that kipping pull up. Let's do this, this, and this. And yes, look, now you have it. No, now you're able to snatch 10 more pounds than this. And you know, you walk out of there going like, oh my God, I just helped 25 of those people improve their fitness today, you know, like versus like that one person. Yeah. So I was like, this is like exponential helping people.
Yeah. So in the same amount of time.
Yeah. So loved that. And again, I was able to to connect with people. I've always been like the super positive trainer, like, you can do it. That's awesome. But again, it was that
some people are so like opposed to that too. They're like, you're just saying that, or like whatever. And it's like, no, you can do it. Yes. Like you believe in them way harder than they do.
Absolutely. And you know, people respond differently. And you, as a trainer, you have to really find do I have to be hard on this person? Do I have to tell them, hey, pick up that fucking bar, you wimp, you know, you little wimp, you know, don't be a little bitch, you know, or the one's like, no, you can do it. You know, you have to kind of find that. Yeah. And for me, naturally, it's just that positive one. So, but I can dig deep and be like, quit being a wimp, let's go. So, really enjoyed that. And then there was an opportunity to go work in Dubai. My bosses had opened a gym in Dubai and we're working on opening one in Abu Dhabi. So they were like, hey, we want to send you over there. You can get that gym going, help it get set up and running. So I was like, cool, let's do it. So I'm always up for adventure. Yeah. You know, and it's funny too, like, after leaving Atlanta and saying yes to okay, I'm going to move away from 30 years of what I know and the people and the community and the roads and the stores and
the familiarity and everything.
Yeah. Once I did that, and that was scary. And my husband and I, we were always like, well, we can always go back. We'll just try it, and we're not going to know anybody down there. And if it sucks, we can always come back. We have so much family and friends here.
Yeah.
We can do it. And once we did that, it kind of sparked where it was this is exciting to move to a new place, to meet new people, to have new experiences.
Yeah,
you know, and you always have I can always go back, but you don't need to.
Yeah.
So we did that for New York, and again, exciting experience. Glad we did it. We learned and grew so much. Great to go back to, Miami's our home base, we say. So then the Dubai thing came up, and I was like, let's go over there. Great opportunity. International, learn different cultures, meet new people.
Yeah.
Financially, it's smart. You can go over there. Your employer pays for your car and your housing, and if you're there longer than a year, it's tax free. So I was cool. We'll go over there and stack away some money, and we can travel the world some more because we love traveling. My husband was trying to work on. There's a Dell. He works for Dell Computers now, and there was a Dell over there, and he was trying to get an opening over there, and they're like, yeah, come over there. I went over there first, and he visited and went and talked to the Dell guys because they were like, there's not any openings, but come and do an interview and meet everybody, and we'll see if something opens up. And it kind of turned out where it's such a good opportunity. It doesn't really open up. So I think one position came up, but they were like, you have to speak French. And I was no. So with that, and then the gym in Abu Dhabi, that project got put on hold and whatever. And then I ended up just coaching and managing at the Dubai gym, and it wasn't what I was going to do, and he wasn't there. So I just kind of came back.
Yeah. How long did you live in Dubai though?
8 months. And
That's
it was
pretty awesome. Though.
Yeah, my husband's like, we're going to have to pay the taxes, but whatever, let's just go.
Yeah.
So came back.
I've always wanted to go to Dubai. I'm obsessed with cars. Oh. So Dubai is
it's crazy.
The holy grail.
Miami's a different level with the money and the cars. Just living in South Beach, you'll see crazy stuff where you're like, there's another Lamborghini, there's another Ferrari, there's a McLaren.
You get desensitized to it.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Dubai's a different level.
Different level, cars that I didn't even know what they were.
Oh yeah.
You're like, holy crap,
they're not even legal in America.
Yeah. Or somebody tells you and you look it up and you're like, that's
$1.5 million.
Yes. Holy crap.
Literally, that's $1 million rolling down the street. Yes. And there's another one. Yes. Literally.
One of the guys.
It's absurd.
Yeah, it's insane. One of the guys that worked out at the gym, super, super nice guy, and just wealthy loaded, sold airplanes. Planes, real planes.
Yep.
And so just going out with him one time, a couple of us went out to a little dinner thing experience, and he was like, well, which cars should I bring? He's listing his cars.
My fleet.
Yeah, and he brings the Rolls Royce with his driver, and he's showing us pictures of his cheetahs and his hyena.
Oh my God.
But the most down-to-earth guy. It was awesome, and was excited to have people that were real friends and liked him because who he was, not because of the money, because you with that you get that whole craziness. But you should definitely visit Dubai. It's a wild
really
place.
Want to. And apparently Monaco is crazy with cars too. Yeah, I'm obsessed with cars, so especially supercars. So that's literally my favorite thing.
And what do you drive?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
No, before
it's the goal. You gotta have the goal.
Yeah. Right now I'm driving a Honda Accord, so it's not exciting at all. But before that, I had an Infiniti G35, and that was really fun.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it reached its demise.
Yeah.
So
now you're being smart and
now I'm
with a Honda.
Exactly.
And when you're number 2 podcast behind Tim Ferriss, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you can be like,
I don't think I bet you Tim Ferriss drives a Prius or something.
Oh,
I could totally see him driving
sure.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's very practical.
I'm more like Joe Rogan. I'll take some sweet cars. Joe's got some cool cars.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I wanted to ask you this too. Okay, so I know you're keto, right?
I had that on my
list. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about keto.
When did you start doing that?
Okay, well, as a trainer, I'm always experimenting with eating so that I can the new diets and stuff that are out, so that I can test them out and experience them and tell them to my clients and try them out. And so I did the bodybuilding diet, and I figured that out, what worked with carb cycling, and I helped all the people on my team. And then when I got into CrossFit, paleo was big, so a bunch of us did paleo, but then competing, I needed a little bit more than paleo was giving me, so I was eating more. And through all this, my husband, he's like the brains of the family. I'm like, I'm the beauty, and I'm the fitness beauty, and you're the brains, but he's naturally like fitness and working out, like that's not his thing, like he loves like just all the nerding out, like super smart, like stuff.
Yeah.
So he's just never been like, when I worked out at Gold's Gym, never got into that. Hated it. Like I'd get him every once in a while to come work out, and he would be like, this sucks. Like the working out by yourself, like boring. I'm around all these meatheads, like not my tea. Then getting into CrossFit, like I remember when I went to the CrossFit gym in Miami to sign up, like when it first opened, I was like, no, come on, I want to sign up and get a membership here. He went in and saw the head trainer shirt off, because it's Miami, there's like no AC, like sweating, picking up weight, clean and jerking it and throwing it on the ground, and the weight's bouncing, and he was like, oh,
this is awesome.
This is awesome. You can drop the weights here. Like, and so he ended up signing up and loving it because of the community aspect,
That's cool.
and in CrossFit also you get like so many different people. You get like doctors and students and, lawyers down to like garbage men to whatever, like all working out together, all in the same level playing field, suffering and succeeding together. So you get that community, love that, versus, going to the gym and, sometimes you go to regular gyms and it's like, oh my God, you don't have the newest Lulus on and your makeup and you're not getting selfies and, a lot of ego there. And there's not in CrossFit, because you're going to get your ass handed to one way or another. Like you may kick ass in this one workout and totally excel, but then the next day you're going to come in and it's going to be something that you suck at and you're going to die and the little grandma's going to beat you, so definitely ego check. So he got into that and, did different eatings with me, but just never really being a computer guy, like sitting down, easy to gain weight, and doesn't have the, like, my body naturally wants to be skinny. Growing up, I was always like the scrawny kid, and he's a beefier kind of person, and so he puts on weight real easy. So with his job and sitting, he gained weight and had tried different things and would go up and down. And one day actually heard, it was a Tim Ferriss podcast with Dom D'Agostino on there. It was like years ago, I think the 2015 one or something, the first one, and was like, this is awesome. I think I want to try this. And so he was like telling me all about it. And I was like, cool, I'll jump in and try it with you. So we start doing it.
Like, sweet, I can eat tons of fatty foods. Like, hell yeah.
Well, and that was an adjustment, especially going from like the bodybuilding stuff, like no
Literally
butter, no cheese. Like,
you're like, wait, I can eat bacon and cheese and butter and avocados and eggs.
Yes. And I'm going to cook in my bacon fat, and like I'm going to have the whole egg and not the egg whites, So it was definitely like a mental battle of like.
You're like, wait, I thought this was all bad. I can eat this?
I'm going to get huge, but I didn't, and so it was cool. So we started doing that, and he dropped weight like this, and mental clarity. He was just like.
And for people that are listening that don't know what the heck we're talking about, so like ketogenic diet, like in like a sentence, like I bet you could describe it better.
So a lot of people will say it's like the Atkins, but it's like Atkins on steroids. Definitely low carb. The real dietetic ketogenic diet that was used. I mean, if you want to go way back, you have, people that wandered the earth, like Eskimos and all kinds of different
like
populations. Blubber. Yeah, definitely were ketogenic. But then back in the like 20s and 30s, they found that medically they could use it to treat epileptic children. That weren't, that before medicine was there. So they found out that if they lowered these kids' carbs to lower than 20 grams of carbs a day and increased their fat to like, I mean, back then there was like the extreme medical ones, like 90% fat, like 85, 90% fat.
It wouldn't trigger a seizure.
No, their body would, the brain, instead of feeding off of glucose, would choose to feed off of ketones, which is what fat breaks down to. And it was like a cleaner fuel supply that, the brain just functioned on better, and they would not have seizures.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
Yeah, so now most people do like a modified version.
Like 75% fat or like 70?
Yeah, 70, 75. Some people even go like 65 and a little higher protein, but you still want to keep those carbs lower. I know more active people to still be in ketosis. And the ketosis, when you're in ketosis, your body has gone from burning sugar. So like when you take in carbs, it breaks it down to sugar. And that is a quick digesting like chemical reaction that happens. It's like, you know, like you can eat like a candy bar and you're like, woohoo, let's go. You know, like it breaks down fast.
And your body will always choose that first because it's like the easiest.
Absolutely. And so when you start feeding it only fats, it's a slower breakdown process for it to get energy from. It's almost like diesel fuel versus like unleaded fuel.
Yep.
But once your body goes from being a sugar burner to a fat burner, you have more energy. It's a more sustained energy because you don't have like the insulin rises and insulin crashes. You get like brain fog is gone. Your brain is functioning like at a higher capacity. People talk about, you know, like clear brain functions like woo. And like the day my husband said, he was like, the first day I went ketosis when my body clicked over, which can take, I mean, a couple days for some people up to like a couple months. Just depends on your body and you know, where your body composition is too. But he said, he's like, it was like my brain connected to the universe. Like, it was just like, oh, and he was on the phone with his mom and she was like, are you on something, honey? Did you take something? You know, because he was just like,
I've been eating fat.
Yeah. He was like, I was just so fired up and my thoughts were coming like so fast and connecting and, you know, super clear. So he like, it was awesome, you know, and I can remember the day mine clicked over for the first time and something happened and I ran out of the house and I didn't have coffee and like ended up at the office but I was like cranking away on my computer, just like, and like, again, the thoughts were connecting. And then finally, like 2 hours later, I was like, wait a minute, I didn't have coffee today. Like, what?
Well, yeah.
You know? And
that's cool.
And a cool thing with it too, what I like, especially for busy people, it's like, you don't have to eat bodybuilding like every 2 to 3 hours. Like in bodybuilding, it was like every 2 to 3 hours. Sometimes I'm eating 8 times a day. Like, and when that like insulin would crash down, you know, it's like, oh my God, I'm hangry. You know, sometimes I remember training clients and being like, I'm going to go grab a bite to eat real fast. Like go grab my bar. Cause if not, I'm going to be mean to you. Like, but with the keto, like because fat takes longer to digest and break down, it's a more slow release and your energy is more sustained. So like sometimes you'll go like 4 or 5 hours and you're like, whoa, when did I eat last? Oh, wow. You know, and you do have to get from the mindset of like, oh, I should eat, it's lunchtime, and just kind of like being able to listen to your body and let it tell you when you're hungry.
Do you do intermittent fasting at all?
So because I'm breastfeeding right now, I haven't. I've tried to like play around with like an 8-hour window, but when my body says I'm hungry, I kind of like, all right, I have to listen because I'm breastfeeding, not like fully breastfeeding. He's like, my child isn't eating yet. So I figure once I'm done with breastfeeding, I would like to do more intermittent fasting and to the extreme of like a couple days fasting, like Tim Ferriss talks about, you know, like resetting in the autophagy and like, you know.
Yeah, I've always been kind of like intimidated to do that because I'm always afraid it's going to like mess with my other like daily life stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It's like I don't want it to like affect my work or like, you know, working out or like whatever.
Yeah.
So I've always been like intimidated to like fast for multiple days.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and like it's one of those things like, you want to
scary.
Yeah, have to do it like I think like on like a weekend and kind of test it out and But I have clients that I've worked with from Dubai that I made, you know, we're clients over there, and then I've done nutrition stuff with them. And when Ramadan happens, which is like, you know, they fast for a whole month where they can't eat when the sun's up. Yeah. So they would do like these feeding windows, and we just kind of went with that, and it worked out awesome, you know, and they were still, I had one client in particular, he was working on like gaining weight and doing the keto, and it was awesome. And he didn't lose muscle mass. Like his lifts were still up. And that's another thing, people are like, oh, well, if I'm eating all this fat, like, you know, my energy is going down the gym and I'm going to not get as strong. But what happens is when you're in that transition period, you will have a little dip in energy while your body's transitioning from that sugar to the fat. And so the dip in energy, maybe even the strength, and people are like, oh my God, I'm losing gains. But if you hold strong and get past that, like it's amazing. I actually did an experiment. Well, my first experiment was that first year trying it out. I was submitted an application for American Ninja Warrior because people were like, you should do it, it'll be awesome. So I was like, okay. Like as I finished competing in CrossFit and was trying new things. And, kind of somebody told me actually a friend that I used to work with in Gold's Gym, his brother is Akbar on American Ninja Warrior. So
Whoa,
he was
that's
like,
cool.
you should do this. And I hadn't really watched it, so I watched a couple of episodes and I was
this
like,
is sweet.
this looks fun. So I submitted an application, started training, and ended up breaking my foot at one of the little training camps that we had. But with an injury, a lot of times your bad cholesterol, your LDL, can go up. So I broke my foot, was in a cast for 2 weeks. When they took it off, I ended up having a blood clot from where the cast was. So went to the doctor. They had to like do all my blood tests and put me on blood thinners and stuff. But through that, I had like a baseline, and I was like, because another thing people are like, oh, all that fat, it's gonna make my cholesterol go up, my bad cholesterol, and I'm gonna be more prone to have a heart attack. So I was like, good experiment. Let's test this out. So got my baseline blood test, and every day I'm like, bacon, cook my bacon grease, cheese, this, like sour cream, avocados. And, I went back in 3 months and they tested it again, and everything was like stellar because my LDL had been high at the beginning. And they were like, but this happens with injuries. Don't freak out. Just, they even told me like, be mindful of what you're eating.
Yeah.
And keep, exercise as much as you can with your broken foot, and I was like, okay, all right, I'll watch what I'm eating. Bacon.
Yeah.
So then when I went back and everything was like actually stellar, they were like, oh, this is great, So I was like, score.
That's
good
so
test
awesome.
on that. Yeah. And then, like after I got back from Dubai, I did a photo shoot, like a fitness photo shoot. So I like leaned down and, got real shredded.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I was having trouble getting that weight back on. I was like, 135, my body usually sits at 140, and I was like, it just, like I said, my body likes to be skinny. So it was like, no, let's be skinny. Like, I was like, no. And I'd listened to a podcast with Dom D'Agostino and Tim Ferriss talking about gaining weight with keto. And most people think, hey, I'm going to lose weight. So I was like, good experimenting time. So I calculated out my calories, what I needed, started tracking on my MyFitnessPal, and was getting like 3,000, like 2,800 to like 3,500 calories a day based on my workouts. My fat was like, like 200 grams per day. And I actually gained strength and muscle, but stayed shredded the whole time I was doing it.
Wow.
Which was totally different from like my bodybuilding days when it's like, all right,
You
let's
have to
mass
bulk
build.
up and then, yeah.
And it's like, let's eat a whole pizza, and you're getting stronger, but you're also getting fat, So it's like this, I remember, I actually have a blog post on my website, and it's funny because I remember one night at the 3,500 calorie day, and I was like in the bathroom getting ready to go to bed, and I'm like, look how shredded I am, I'm so vascular. So my husband like took a picture of me, and he was like, that's disgusting. And I was like, but it's great, look at how vascular I am. This doesn't happen when you're like mass building. So cool experiment with that. And we've been keto ever since.
That's awesome.
Got pregnant last April and stayed pretty much low carb, keto-ish. I kind of went through like, what does my body need? And if it says, hey, I need some fruit or some carbs or whatever, I'd have a little more. But
yeah,
typically I was low carb. Actually, and continued. I think the last month we kind of blew it out because I was like, all right, let's go out to eat here. Let's do this because we're about to have a kid, and it's not going to be as easy to go out. After I had him, I researched like breastfeeding and keto because I was like, is this okay?
Yeah.
Am I missing something to give him? And there was some studies that it came up saying it was actually beneficial. Like,
wow.
I mean, babies need a lot of fat to their brain development. Their brain grows so much in those first couple months. And here's a little thing, like little disclosure about like breastfeeding. When you breastfeed, like sometimes you'll get what's called letdown on the other breast that your baby's not feeding on. And so I had that, and it was actually a lot, to the point where I had to get some little device that you stick in your bra and it catches breast milk. And it was so much was coming out that I just kept storing it in the freezer. And by like 10 weeks, I had we have a second fridge and freezer here in the garage, and it was like full.
Oh
and I'm
gosh.
like reaching out to my midwife going like, does anybody need milk? Because I don't, and I need to give it away. But I was kind of worried. There's two parts of the breast milk. Like the first part that comes out is more of like a hydrating, watering kind, and then the hind milk. is more of the fat production. I was like, well, maybe it's all like the watery kind, but then I'd put it in the fridge before the freezer and like there'd be so much fat around the inside before I transferred it. So I was like, that's cool. So lots of help there. And with, you know, the keto, I think it's definitely been good. And the recovery from, you know, my getting back to my pre-pregnancy body has been pretty easy, I feel like.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have to pee so bad. Can we pause this?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, we're back.
We're back.
That was much needed. I was dying.
Me too.
I hate like being the one to interrupt my own thing because I'm like, I'm gonna stick it out, but I was dying for the last like 30 minutes, and I'm just like, okay.
And I gave you a whole bang, and you downed it. So
yeah,
lots of fluids.
Yeah, that was a lot of fluids, but probably needed after like being in the drier climate too. Like I'm not used to that, hiking all yesterday or the day before and all that. So like having to, I'm really trying to be mindful of that.
Yeah, we noticed the humidifier here. We have this going 24/7 coming from Miami, very humid. Atlanta's humid too.
Yep.
To here, it was like you'd go outside and it's like you swallowed sand. It was insane. You get all dry and nasty.
Like my nose gets really like it's
bloody
gross.
Boogers, like.
Yeah, it's gross. Like this whole weekend I've just been like, ugh, my nose.
Super dry.
Yeah, it's not fun. But anyways. Let's go back. So we were talking about, you were saying like you were on keto and you were kind of worried about it like affecting the breast milk and all that kind of stuff. So, but it ended up being totally good.
Awesome. Which it for people that don't know, like a lot of women struggle with being able to produce enough milk to feed their child for like, you know, the recommended is like the first 4 to 6 months you want to exclusively breastfeed your child. Like they shouldn't have food till around then. And, you know, so a lot of women struggle with it. And if you're struggling, then immediately it's like, okay, put them on formula, which is not, you know, it's not designed for babies like your breast milk is. So it's really like women will say it's like liquid gold. So the fact that I was like, I got all this, let me help people out. Because, you know, I looked on like donating it and there's actually some hospitals you can donate to, but they pasteurize it and kill, you know, it kills a lot of the good stuff. And
didn't want it to go to waste.
No, not all this magical gold. So through like my midwife, she was able to connect me with somebody. And, you know, you kind of have that little inner circle of tribes where my midwife knows me and knows I'm healthy and has done tests on me, you know, like knows I don't have like AIDS, which can be transferred with breast milk. So was able to connect me and you kind of have that trust of like, it's just good supply. Yeah. So I've actually donated to 2 moms and it's been the greatest thing to be able to help people out. So
that's really cool.
But keto has definitely been a lifestyle. Started out as like, hey, let's try out this diet, but it's definitely turned into a lifestyle that's sustainable, and I've been able to help a lot of people with it. My dad just started it recently, and my mother-in-law.
How long have you been keto now?
So over 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you said you kind of went out of it for a little bit? Or no?
I've kind of gone, like, experimented with, like, carb loading, you know, like, again, I'm all about experimenting. So I know, like, in Dubai, I'd be like, oh, let's kind of carb load before workouts, and actually have a blood tester so I could kind of see where
your ketone levels were and
where
all
my
that.
ketones levels were, because some people can get away with like there's like a level of like, okay, I can do 50 grams of carbs and still be in ketosis, or you know, like maybe
this
I can only go 30.
Yeah,
so it's kind of been an experiment here and there. I would say just the last month of my pregnancy, it was kind of more free flow. Like we're keto in the house, but like when we go out, I was just kind of like, hey, let's go. We're in Vegas. Let's go get this donut. Let's go get
keto in the streets, but
keto in the streets, yes. Keto in the bed, not on the streets, right? So, but it's been good. Actually, the gym, the CrossFit gym, I started working at the gym out here while we were here, and they did nutrition challenges. And when I got here, some of the coaches were like, well, what do you do? You look great, you know? And I told them the keto. So they're like, hey, we're doing a nutrition challenge, and we did Whole30 last time, and we're thinking about doing keto. You want to help lead it? So I did that.
That's awesome.
We've had a lot of successes, you know. It's good because it's one of those things, like a lot of people with Whole30, it's a great diet to detox and clean out, but then most people rebound afterward because it's very restrictive.
And the name itself is just indicative that it's going to be over.
Yes.
Like Whole30, you do it for 30 days and then you go back to normal. Right. Like it's not like it doesn't seem sustainable.
So it's like a diet to get ready for the beach.
Yeah, it's like, let's give this a shot. Yeah, you're right. It's totally like a detox thing. It was maybe like 2 years ago now. I did the ketogenic diet for like 5 months or so. And it was really awesome. It's just like, it didn't seem sustainable for me. And it was always like, it didn't, like, I was kind of changing my job and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, let's change it up a little bit. But it was really awesome for me, not only just because of like, you know, how I felt and all this stuff, but it was cool because, like you said, changing up your diet and experimenting and seeing how your body responds to different things was just really eye-opening and like enlightening, because I was like, okay, wow, I can eat these things and not, you know, whatever. Or like, wow, I've been taught that these things are bad my whole life, but in reality, this is how my body responds and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing. Like, you know, like maybe it's not, certain diets aren't for everybody, but being able to experiment and kind of figure out what works for you, your body, and your lifestyle. And it's been good. And, you know, like most people, once they can kind of get in the hang of it, like keto's good because you're not deprived. You know, you get the cheeses and the, you know, the butters and the fats that help you feel satisfied and taste delicious versus getting rid of those things. And once you're in it a long time, you can be like, all right, I'm going to have a cheat day. And I'm going to have a cheat meal. And maybe you're kicked out for a couple hours or a day or two, or you get back in.
End of the world. Yeah,
and your body will snap back in. And the longer you're in, like the quicker you get back in, which is cool. So
yeah, that's like one thing I love about Tim Ferriss too. Like in the 4 Hour Body, like he talks about like those cheat days are like super important. Like I'm a huge believer in that.
Absolutely.
Because I can't deprive myself. Because if I like if I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stay completely clean and not eat anything bad, I'm gonna cheat all the time. But if I'm like, okay, I'm going to go like 6 days and this day's my cheat day, it's like working towards a goal, boom. Like working towards the next goal, boom, or whatever.
Absolutely.
Super helpful.
It's good mental break for you.
Yes.
Too. The Magic Pill is a new documentary that just came out that is awesome, that I would recommend. I just finished it last night, and it's about a ketogenic diet. Great movie, documentary. They follow.
Did it?
Couldn't tell you.
Okay. I'll figure it out, people.
Yes, it's
called The Magic
awesome.
Pill.
And there, and
where did you watch it?
Netflix.
Okay, cool.
And I think it's like $3.
I've never heard of Netflix.
Where can I find Netflix? But it's cool because it has like different scenarios on there with like health scenarios, you know, diabetes, there's an autistic kid, like a cancer person, and how the ketogenic diet affects these people. And it's fascinating. Very fascinating. Very inspiring.
I'll have to check that out.
Very good. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, let's talk about your home birth.
Home birth. Woo. Okay, so another crazy
and very recent, 4 months.
Very recent, yeah. So I got a little son. So even though I went through that crazy thing with the egg donation, my husband and I, throughout our travels and moving, we, you know, would have times where we'd be like, okay, we're trying to get pregnant. And then it'd be like, let's put it on hold because we're moving or whatever. And so it's kind of like back and forth. And, you know, then we kind of buckled down when I got back from Dubai, and we're really trying. And, you know, we moved out here temporarily for his work, and our condo kitchen is being remodeled and demolished. So we were like, perfect. And I didn't have a job coming out here at first because it was going to be a short term. So just working out and no stress, relaxing. And that's what people tell you. Like, you're trying to get pregnant, just relax and don't try. And we went on a birthday trip and got pregnant, and it was awesome. And one of my girlfriends in Miami had a 1-year-old at the time, and she had done a natural birth. And it had been something I'd been interested in like years ago when we were trying to get pregnant. I'd never heard of home birth really. More so like going natural, like the tub, like doing the like birthing tub, and you know the baby kind of coming from swimming in you to like swimming in the water. I was like, that's awesome. And it's supposed to be like, you know, like an epidural, almost like pain relief because of the anti-gravity effect, and and like very soothing for you and the baby. So I was like, that's awesome. And so started researching in that, and there's looked up like midwives, because that's, you know, like a lot. She actually did one. She didn't do it in her home. She, because she lives in an apartment building, she was like, I didn't want people to think I'm dying. So in Miami, they have birthing centers, which is, the one she was at was kind of like a house that had a bunch of rooms. And so you're in the comfort of this, you know, like this house environment versus the hospital.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. And, you know, to me, like, nobody wants to go to the hospital. And
No.
when you go to the hospital, you go because you're sick, 99% of the time you're in the hospital because you're sick.
Yep.
So the thought of like having to go to a hospital in like a sterile environment and that like energy of like, with all the craziness of machines and people running around and just like the sterile environment, I was like, I would like to do something different. So
Yeah.
Found like a midwife center out here and came highly recommended, actually even by some nurses that I CrossFitted with that were like, no, this is, these ladies are legit. And went and interviewed a midwife, met with her and was like, this is cool. So started meeting with her and, doing the whole process and learning. And my husband was on board, but he was kind of like, like what if?
It's a little scary, yeah.
It's a little scary, like what if? Like,
Yeah, what if something crazy happens and you don't have the right people there and blah, blah, blah.
Absolutely, because there's always that, like you hear the horror stories of like, oh, we had to do an emergency C-section because the baby's heart rate or this, and this. And like his mom actually at the time was nannying for an OBGYN. So when he told his mom, she flipped because she talked to this lady and of course the lady was like, oh no, like this can go wrong and this and it's so dangerous and like went down this thing. So his mom's like flipping out because this is like, our first baby and her first grandchild from us and it wasn't until I was listening to podcasts. I'm like, let me find some podcasts and research and found a podcast that recommended a documentary called The Business of Being Born. And it's done by Ricky Lake. If you're my age, you'll remember Ricky Lake had a talk show back in the day.
Yeah, it was the morning show, right? Or something?
I think maybe more like an afternoon, maybe like kind of like a Maury Povich.
Gotcha.
Or like, I don't even know, Jerry Springer kind of thing. But it was like, not crazy like Jerry Springer. But one of those, maybe it was morning, who knows. But so she did a documentary and it was really informative and kind of really demystified the whole home birth. Because a lot of people think home birth and you're like, all right, like some crazy hippie shit. Like, who's showing up, to birth this baby? You're going to birth it in like rags and get the pot of water. And, so it was very cool for them to break it down and to also really inform you of like what happens in the hospital and what the protocols are. And, like sometimes it's really not in your best interest for some of the things. And like you may be going in saying, because a lot of women I know have said like, all right, cool, I'm going to do natural birth, and then they get in there and, things get tough and they're like, well, just take an epidural. Or it's like every 30 minutes.
Or it's too late for the epidural or whatever,
Yeah. Or like, like you start getting that pain and they're like, well, you should just get an epidural. You should, which can lead to other complications. And they actually call it the cascade of events in the documentary because it's like a lot of times women go to the hospital, like they tell you like wait till you're like 2 minutes apart in your contractions and then show up to the hospital and you get there and a lot of times you're in that sterile environment, you're around people that like there's chaos, there's stress, there's strangers that you don't know, like all up in your business, like open those legs, check, and like a lot of them will stop dilating or, like the labor will stop or won't be progressing like they want it to. And, so they're like, okay, let's give you some Pitocin. Let's get that going. And when they give you the Pitocin, it's like your contractions come on stronger. So then it's like...
The pain is going to be more because
intense.
Of that. Yep.
Yeah. So then it's like, okay, now we get that epidural. And like...
It's like the symptoms are being caused by the other things. And
So, you have that. And like the Pitocin, because the stronger, harder contractions, a lot of times that affects the baby's heart rate. So then you have emergency stuff that happens. And it's, there's definitely a time and a place for emergency C-sections and for medical interventions, but also like if you look at it, and the statistic I read was like, if you are a low risk pregnancy, like if you're not going in there like with already kinds of things, like you could have some stuff going wrong, then, like 95% of the time you will have a birth with no complications. And if you really think down into it, like my rationalization, I'm like very rational. I was like, well, women have been having babies for hundreds of thousands of years with no hospitals, if they can do that, I can do this. And my body was designed to do this. And actually, like God has made my body to do this and I get the opportunity to create life and bring life into the world with God. Like I want to experience this and I want to experience the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like
it's kind of like that, like being able to accomplish that thing
if you can accomplish a birth without any kind of extra help and doctors and all this stuff, like what else can I do?
It just kind of like we were talking about the workouts or the yoga class, you know, and it's like, absolutely, you know, and I started researching and reading a bunch of birth stories and like, I mean, you have women, you know, because people are like, oh, well, you work out, so you're tough, you can do this. But, you know, like I start reading these other accounts and there's like women that have never worked out in their lives and like, you know, just went through it. And like, the more I read and the more I informed myself of what could go wrong or different experiences and what people felt or how long their labors were, like the more prepared and less scared I was versus, you know, when you first think about being pregnant and going to delivery, what do you think of? You think of like what you've seen on TV, which is
rushing
women
to the hospital and freaking out.
And women screaming and they're like, I hate you, husband, because you did this to me. And like everything's in pain and craziness. Or you hear stories of your girlfriends telling you like, oh, it was so painful and it was awful. And
the ripping and the tearing and the cutting and the,
So it's like if you fill yourself with all of that negative stuff, then you're going to be terrified that this is going to be the scariest thing. And maybe I can't do it. And
and then you watch like a home birth video and it's like very calm and like, it's like very relaxing and just like happens and then.
Crazy. And then you're like, okay, I can do this. And, you know, so we.
Actually, I was going to say this. I actually got down a weird rabbit hole on Instagram of watching home birth videos the other day, which is super weird. Like, for like
Did you know we were going to talk about this?
No. Not even super weird, like the fact that we were going to talk about it, but it's just like super weird as like a 23-year-old like dude that's not like married or anything to like be watching like a rabbit hole of like home birth videos. But it was like kind of interesting. Like it was very fascinating.
And it's very different from what you see on TV, right?
Exactly. And then and it's very like it's almost like I don't even know how to describe it, like almost like a ritual or something rather than like this medical like strange thing that's like an extraction. It's like this is more of like a natural like ritual thing that's like bringing the baby into the world rather than like this crazy like get the forceps and squeeze it out and all that.
And that's what it is too, you know. It's like, again, this is natural and your body knows and God knows, if you believe in that, like what's best and what's the right timing. Whereas like you'll see nowadays it's like births get scheduled to be like more Monday through Friday, you know, because the doctors don't want to work on the weekend. And it's like, okay, we're going to induce you, but why are we inducing you? Unless there's an issue, you know, like for convenience, or like if you're getting induced, like maybe the baby's not ready to come out yet, you know? And it's like in this country, like the World Health Organization recommends only like a 13, I think it was like around 13% C-section rate a year, and in this country we have a 33% a year.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a lot of
and there's like weird things that happen, like the baby doesn't get like certain things when you have a C-section, right? Like
the good bacteria.
Yeah, the bacteria and the fluids and all that stuff, like it gets removed from it prematurely or whatever.
And then they immediately have to take the baby away because they have to sew you up, and you know, there's a lot of that bonding that you want it to happen.
Happens immediately,
So there's
pretty nuts.
But
and like it's a traumatic, like if the baby is being born into a traumatic experience, like literally that can be like imprinted so early on.
Absolutely. And you know,
and you never know how that's going to affect.
You never know. And like, you know, I think it comes down to when we started researching, it's like, it's that word of empowerment again. Like, take this into your own hands of like, this is your body, this is your baby, this is your birth. Like, be knowledgeable of everything that can happen and what your options are, and be able to make the decisions. If you want to have a hospital birth, awesome, but go in there and have a plan and what you want to expect and
know why.
Exactly.
That's like the biggest thing for me is like, I hate taking like pills, I hate taking medicine because I'm always like, I don't know, I've always been weird about it because growing up, my mom is like very like holistic kind of natural stuff. So it wasn't ever like, oh, take this pill. It was more like, you know, I don't know, not anything like, oh, I'm going to mix up this home remedy or anything, but it was always just like, hopefully you feel better, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think so many parents and just people in general just have been taught, oh, you feel bad, like take this.
Yes.
Like, this is what science and medicine was designed for. Like, that's why we created this. Like, take this.
Science and medicine. Where now it's like, and your mom was smart about like, hey, let's see what nature has given us, you know, like same thing with like ketogenic diet. Like I told you, there was things in there with people treating their disease with the diet. What has nature given us? Like what is the tools and, you know, the things that can treat illnesses.
Yeah, or working on preventative measures.
Absolutely.
And trying to treat things before they happen rather than trying to treat a symptom of something that's not fixing the root cause.
And, you know, like if you are choosing certain things, like know the risk and the benefits. Like, you know, like, okay, cool. Maybe I don't want to feel the pain. Like I've heard like, hey, let's just take it away. Like, but what are your risks and what are your, you know, the benefits of that? Like, know that
everything is always a trade-off. There's always a trade-off with any decision you always make.
Absolutely.
So like, just know.
And don't go in there and blindly. And I think, you know, you do get in that science and medicine thing where it's like, you want to trust your doctor that they're going to have the best interest, but they are like, they do have their blinders on, and it's like, science and medicine is the best option. So here's how we're going to do it. And we're going to give you these drugs and we're going to do it medically versus, you know, like, hey, what does your body want to do? What is nature? Like, what's the natural route? Like,
it's like, how about instead of giving you like more medicine to treat this, like what would happen if we took away everything and like established a baseline or like things like that. And you're right. Like we want to be able to trust, you know, our medical doctors or whatever, but at the same time, there's, especially now with how much access to information we have, you can kind of do your own research a lot of the times, and not to say like, oh yeah, don't trust your doctor, just go Google, just go on WebMD or whatever. Like, no,
don't do that.
Don't diagnose yourself. Like, but at the same time, you've got to think about what are the motives, what are the reasons,
and what's their training in, you know, like they're trained to save lives, and OBGYNs are trained in surgery, you know, like they're not trained like birth, it's surgery. So like they see a problem and they're like, let's fix it. Let's get it out. You know, like, okay, we'll just take the baby out.
Extraction.
And, you know, and like, they're trying to do the best that they can with what they have. And it's like, the internet is a great thing. And that's one thing, like, I was able to share with my mother-in-law, because back in the day, like, they couldn't look stuff up, like, you know.
Yeah, you couldn't watch 100 videos of home births.
Yes! Or listen to podcasts, or, you know, like, research, well, what are the effects of this? What are the benefits of this? And, like, learn about the stuff that comes, you know, the good bacteria that you get from the birth canal, or the bonding. Like, you learn from your doctors or your friends or your family what they experience. So being, you know, empower yourself to, like, in an experience that's going to affect you and your baby, like, know what you're getting into and make your decisions from there, you know. And that's what I like, because I'm all for it. Like, if you want to go have a hospital birth, awesome. If you want to have a home birth, awesome. Just know what
you owe it to yourself and your child.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
totally
so
agree.
we decided that, you know, the home birth was a better option for us. And what was great is, you know, we did feel empowered from the very beginning of going into having appointments with our midwife. It wasn't like, you know, you go to the doctor and normally it's like, it's a quick in and out, like, okay, check this, and any questions? Okay, see you later. And, you know, and sometimes you're waiting an hour to even get in there.
Yeah.
Versus we get into our midwife, we go in her office and it's like a nice comfy environment with a couch and
you're hanging out.
We're hanging out, and it was literally 30 minutes to an hour or even longer, just answering our questions, going over certain things, and it was very calm. And, you know, when she did have to check the baby's heart rate and, you know, do that little thing, she would always say, ask for my permission. Can I touch you? Can I touch your belly? And I thought that was really awesome versus like, all right, hey, we're going to do this. All right, open those legs, you know, like, and it was always asking our permission. And then when there was decisions to be made, it was always like, here's a decision, you know, here's your options, you know, like,
that's awesome.
Here's some risk and benefits. You know, you let me know and we'll go from there. It was we never felt pressured to make certain decisions. And I know some women in the hospital can feel pressured, like, you know, like, nope, this is what's best. You know, like, we got to do this, you know, like, this is this and this is how it's done.
And I think also, like, in that profession, in that world, I think also they've been taught, like, don't give the patient the decision because they're not the expert. They don't know. And like, once you give people, almost like people don't want to make a decision. They want to go to an expert for the answer. Like, they're like, don't ask me. Like,
yes.
Like, you tell me. I don't know. I'm just this guy or whatever.
And that's where I'm like, we do have the power to research and make your own decisions and be empowered.
Yeah.
So like use that, people, to your benefit.
And that's not to say like, yeah, like you're having a baby, like just open up your bathtub and have at it. Like you should, like there's obviously like steps and things you need to do, but.
And that's another cool thing is like the midwives, like again, they're not like little witch doctors and whatever, and like tons of training, tons of experience. Like the midwife we had, she had been at over 300 births. Like there's another one that my girlfriend's actually going to be using, and she's been at over 800 births. And
wow.
And they do like a 2x2 thing. It's like you have your main midwife that's kind of like your doctor that you deal with through your whole pregnancy, and she comes to your birth and she brings another one. So you have that backup and somebody that they can bounce ideas off, like, hey, what do you think? Oh, we should do this. And, we did go through the like, well, what ifs, and like she countered everything. Well, if this happens, well, we go to the doctor, we go to the hospital, or, like, oh, this is what we do, or we do this. And at the end of all of our questions and concerns, I remember her saying, I'm going to let you know, she's like, this is one of the most beautiful and exciting times for you, but it's normally uneventful. Like normally there's no complications, and if you are high risk, she was like, we wouldn't be doing it at home. There's, but you have to even be low risk to qualify. So you're starting off with that kind of slate.
That's good.
So it was cool. So we, our little place here in Vegas, as you can see, our little apartment, it's kind of an apartment upstairs. It's big. It's about as big as our apartment in Miami, and it has a big bathroom. So again, I was like, hey, let's do that little tub birth. That's awesome. It looks great. I've seen it in videos, and after watching a million videos like you've been. So we had that set up in the closet. We took down the doors so we could have like the kind of like a nice ambience, had candles lit, had a nice playlist of music going, and again, we're in our comfort space. It was my husband. I actually got a doula, which is kind of like a birth coach, which was awesome for my first time. Like she came before the midwives. So it would be like somebody that came with you before you went to the hospital. And so she timed my contractions, helped me like, hey, why don't you try this position? Hey, your back's a little tight. Husband, come over here. Let's push on her back, give her some counter pressure. And like, so it was cool because like first time you're not like, is this right? Am I supposed to be experiencing this? And she could be like, no, everything's on track. We're doing good. I'm talking to the midwife. She'll be coming over shortly, so that was very cool. And like,
that's awesome.
Actually a cool thing with the whole pain that people experience is, to me, my rational mind was like, okay, well, I think about if I'm in a yoga pose or I'm like stretching after CrossFit or preparing, like if something hurts or feel tight, I can move a different position and it feels differently. Same with birth. And from what I was learning, listening to people, it was like, oh, this is a little painful. Let me move over here. And like, oh, maybe that position feels better. Like the most common birth position, if like just in the natural world, like if you look back in cultures and everything, it's like a squatting position. Or on your hands and knees. Like that's usually where people go to, just like if you just let them go.
Hands and knees. That's kind of like animals.
Yeah.
Like that's how animals are born typically.
Not on their backs. And like learning like the back is not really an optimal position. And some women naturally end up there if they like are fatigued from laboring so long. But the baby actually has to like travel down the birth canal and like go under the pubic bone. And
it's not a straight shot.
Not a straight shot, and you don't have gravity to help. And that's another thing about like laboring and not being hooked up to things is I could walk around and I could try different positions and help the baby move into position, because when you're having those contractions, it's the baby moving and like he actually like spirals like a football like down, and so it's like your body helping him move down, and you're working together to get in that right position. So if you're like, this doesn't feel right, let me go over here, you're actually helping him move to that right position. So again, my logical mind was like, I'll be able to find a position that's not as painful, it'll be cool.
Yeah.
So I labored out here for a while, like just in the main room, and I had heard like, like talk to your midwife about when you should get in the tub because you don't want to get too early because some people it stalls their birth. And so she was like, wait to use it like an epidural. So when it's like the pain is super intense, or the pressure, like in my hand, I was like, it's pressure, it's not pain, it's pressure. Change up the word, and it changes up your focus on it. So, and I was like, okay, I think I'm good. Well, funny thing is at first, because people are like, how long are you in labor? And it was like 12 hours, but you think, oh my God, that's forever. But it doesn't start out intense. Nature's very, very gentle with you. Like at first I was like, ooh, I think 4 a.m, I'm like, I think I have gas. Is that a gas pain or is that a contraction? You know? So I was just kind of aware. And so they started out like that, and they just, you know, as the hours go on, you get more intense and more intense. And so she finally checked me. I was like a 9 or a 10, got in the tub, and I'm in there. And that's when I remember.
9 or 10 on like pain scale?
On the dilation.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, gotcha.
Which is like, you're right there. You're about ready to start pushing. You're good to go. So I was like, awesome. I went all the way, because you'll hear some people be like, oh, I got to here and then I stalled or whatever. And, you know, I was like, yes, we're almost there. But I also, through my research, I had learned that your body releases natural pain remedies, pain medicine. Actually, DMT is released in birth and death naturally in your body. And I remember being in the tub, like laboring in a contraction. As the contraction was coming on, I remember my head like swaying side to side and my eyes rolling in the back of my head. And like, you know, being overwhelmed with that experience of, I guess, pain relief, but just losing a sense of time and space. And, you know, then the contraction went away and the drugs kind of went away. And I remember thinking to myself, like laughing, like, I know I look really messed up right now.
Yeah, you're like tripping on your own chemicals.
So I'm like, holy crap, if somebody was videoing me, they'd be like, she's on some really good drugs. Like, totally looked at like that. So I was like, I had this great experience, like, on that, where I was like, okay, this is cool. And, you know, like, it did get intense. I'm not going to say like, oh, it was super easy, but like, it was intense. And I remember, I never thought once to myself, and probably because, like I said, I'm stubborn, and when I set towards the goal, I'm like, no, we're going for it. I never thought, hey, I need pain pills. I'm dying, I need pain medicine. But I thought like, ooh, I can see why people want some pain medicine. It's intense. But cool thing, I remember just laboring and looking out of the tub, and my midwives were sitting on the floor, like against the sink, just letting me do my thing, letting me labor and letting nature do its thing. And it was the most calm environment that I had, you know? So
that's awesome.
I was in my space. My husband was actually in the tub with me, rubbing on my back, kissing me, hugging me, and they're just letting me labor, watching me, you know, making sure nothing's going wrong and everything's normal. And they would come check the heart rate. And but there was no stress. There was not a stressful environment. You know, I didn't have crazy lights or beeping noises or people coming and check me all the time. And it was very peaceful. And they checked the heart rate twice, and the second time it was actually a little high because the water had gotten hot. Like when they set up the tub and we were laboring out here, the tub lady was like, hey, listen, the water, if it sits, it'll get too hot, so you need to stir it every once in a while. She told my husband this, and he was like, okay, well, he was focused on me and being with me that like he kind of forgot. So when I got in there the first time, they were like, it's a little hot. Let's put some ice in. Got some ice and some cold water and cooled it off enough that I could labor in there. And actually, when I first got in there, I was like, ooh, this is amazing. I see why people want to have like babies in here, because it definitely was like a epidural, like a pain relief, and definitely did help. So it was very cool. So I started pushing in there. And it's funny, like naturally you're like, you start making noises. And I remember like getting a little high pitched. And one of the midwives said, hey, remember you want to do like a low guttural, like tribal sound. And the science behind that is actually like it helps open up your orifice. So so the baby can help travel downwards. So you literally like are like, oh, like, you know, you're thinking like, she's like a warrior. And I'm like, okay, warrior, let's go. You know, and so I'm doing that and laboring in there. And then the heart rate got a little high when she checked the second time. So they're like, okay, look, why don't let's get out on land, labor for a bit. And then if you want to get back in, you know, when it cools off, we can. And in my head, I'd already been pushing, and I was like, I'm getting out. We're done. We're doing this thing. We're so close. And I could already like reach in there and kind of feel when I was contracting. She was like, reach in there. You can feel where your baby is. And being able to feel where your baby is, it was like, whoa, I can feel him. He's right there, you know, like, and what happens is like, you can feel it and like, you'll push and he'll come forward and then come back, come forward and come back. And that's just like your body, like stretching those muscles out. So, you know, it's not like like you see in the movies, push, 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 go, go, go. It doesn't do that. Like that's
grab his head.
Yeah. yeah, pull. It's a forward and a back. And so we did that, and so I'm getting motivated that I'm like, he's so close. Like, oh, I can feel he's here. He's here. And so we got out, and I was actually kneeling down. My husband's sitting on the tub. And as a contraction would come, I would like hike my leg up like a half squat position. And I don't know, to me, I was just like, I can get leverage and push. So I'm like, whoo, like pushing and bearing down, and, got really close. And a lot of women will say like, oh, the pushing part was the best. Like I felt, once I could push, it felt good. And like, I felt like I was doing something. But for me, like leading up, I was like, okay, this is tough and intense. But when I got to the pushing, it was like all the pressure was there. And I remember being like, whoa, okay, we gotta go. We gotta, like at one point I looked back at the midwives and I had this look of like, oh my God, after a contraction, because I'd push and then I'd be like, whoo, whoo. And I looked back at her and she was like, I know it's intense, but you can do it, and it's like the good coaching that I needed. I'm like, okay, we can do this, and so.
That's awesome.
Finally got, like really close, and his head's coming out, and my midwife's like, look, see his head? He's coming out on the next one. So she's like, listen, next one, I want you to push his head out, breathe, take a, and then on the second contraction, I want you to push the rest of him out. And like, by then I was like, he's coming out. So I like pushed, and he like came out. And, it was like, for me, I'm like, oh, it's like a relief. I'm excited. We finally get to meet our baby that we've been waiting for. But also that feeling of empowerment, like,
yeah,
whoa.
I did that.
I did that. I made it. This is like one of the toughest things, probably the toughest thing I'll ever do. And I've like experienced this, and I did it by myself, like they were there to assist, but like I didn't have help. This was me. This was my power, with the support of my husband. And, like I said, he was my rock. He was hugging on me and kissing on me and, there. And I look up at him, he's just got like tears streaming down his face. And, just an amazing experience. Like once they took the baby and, we held it, went ahead and they gave me the baby, and he's like slippery and slimy. By the way, birth is like a murder scene. Like, so if you have a queasy stomach, it's a little rough, but.
I feel like, I was going to say, I feel like the bathtub would kind of almost help it though, like diluting it.
Yes.
So it's not just like blood everywhere. It's kind of like mixing with the water and stuff.
Yes. Well, it's funny. My husband's kind of like, weak stomach, queasy. And like, so we were in the bathtub, like laboring in between a contraction. I remember like seeing, stuff floating around. I'm like, hey, watch out for that one. And he was like, it's fine. Like it's in the middle of it. He was like, I just didn't care.
Yeah, exactly.
But like after we did like that, holding the baby skin to skin, like right away, which you're like, oh my God. And like try not to slip out of his hand, let him slip out of your hands. But did a cord cutting. And then they're like, okay, let's move the family to the bed. And that was a great thing to be able to just come right from the birth
to your own bed.
To our own bed, and like the baby's on me and we're cuddled up, and the midwives they clean up everything, which was awesome. And then doing their charting, and they, like we sat in the bed for like an hour while they kind of did their things and went out of the room and did their charting stuff. And we're doing our bonding skin to skin, which is very important for the bonding stuff that like you talked about. So did that, and then, came back an hour later and did the weighing and like all that, the measuring, and again, left, came back the next day, checked on us, and we didn't leave the house for like a week. Just we're already in our home, we're doing skin to skin, getting the bonding, and it was one of the most amazing things I've ever had. So I really challenge women to, again, research, know your options, and read other experiences and listen to other experiences, and take the power into your own hands and make the decisions, whatever it may be, so that, you can have the experience that you want. And, sometimes it may not go as planned. I might have had to go to the hospital, but luckily I didn't, and it was just one of the most beautiful days that I can experience. I didn't have to be like,
awesome. Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Really awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like that's a great place to wrap things up. If people want to like find you or ask you questions or follow you on Instagram or whatever, where do they go?
Meganator26 is my main Instagram handle. You can DM me. I've connected to lots of people on there. I don't mind that.
I love Instagram for connecting with people.
It's so great. You know, like before that there was like Facebook, but I just like Instagram better. And
apparently they're really ramping up their DM system. Like they've already kind of like changed some things. But anyways, that's
cool.
Because they're realizing it's such a powerful tool.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, I love helping people. So reach out and you can ask me about anything. Like I've connected with a mama here who I did a post about eating my placenta, which you can read about that. And she connected with me, and now she's doing a home birth. And I, gave her the information with the midwives to like I've picked up people and like clients, or even just help people with the ketogenic diet. I will give out free information all day long. I'm all about helping people.
That's awesome.
So Meganator26 actually did a Fit Keto Chick Instagram account that is just keto. So if you want to like get some just food ideas, and because people are always like, well, what do I eat? So every time I like make some keto food, I'll post pictures on there.
Nice.
And then that way you don't have to kind of shift through my like now all my baby pictures and you know like my workout stuff. You can just go to there. So Fit Keto Chick. And then I have a website. I'm working on updating it and putting more mama stuff on there and more keto stuff, but it's meganmay.net. And there is some two keto blog posts of when I worked on gaining weight with keto. So it kind of runs through there.
Very cool.
That's it.
Very cool. Well, Megan, thank you so much for being on the show. This was super fun. I feel like this was an awesome podcast.
We went forever.
It's okay. It's all good. But yeah, thanks for being on the show, and we'll see you later, everybody.
Boom. There you have it, folks. Thank you again to Megan for being on the show, for being such an awesome and inspiring individual. Again, make sure you guys go follow her on Instagram and all of that fun stuff. Okay, so you made it to the end. You're in the club. That means a lot of things. But number one, that means that you enjoyed this podcast. That's a really good thing, because that means I know that you'll also love some of my other episodes as well. So if you're into fitness and nutrition and that side of things, then I know you will absolutely love listening to episode 87 with Momma Cabria. Talk about an amazing episode. If you haven't listened to that one yet, then I don't even know what you're doing with your life, but it was one of the best ones of all time. But Momma is also known as smallandstrong.fit on Instagram, where she has 107,000 raving fans. She currently runs SAS Brands, which is an agency that develops social media strategies for health and fitness brands. And she also hosts amazing fitness events around Atlanta and around the country. She's constantly connecting and collaborating with other influencers in her space. So go check that episode out. That was episode 87 with Momma Cabria. And also, of course, got to give credit where credit is due. Go back and listen to episode 47 with Richard Corbett, my amazing friend who introduced me to Megan. And Richard is a very interesting dude. He's a super talented content creator and artist. He's a bodybuilding and fitness fanatic. He's a college dropout. And he is currently working through a massive injury that left him wheelchair bound, but he's breaking down his own physical barriers and mental barriers day after day. Recently, he launched his new YouTube channel. It's called Wheels to Walking. That's the number 2. And his channel is already blowing up like crazy. His first video did like 5,000 views in the first day. Like, is crazy. But I'm going to have Richard on again soon so that we can discuss his new project. But in the meantime, go check out episode 47. It was amazing. I know anyone who's a fan of my show is going to love that episode. And go check it out. Coming up next, we've got episode 92 with my friend Chad Buchanan. Talk about a freaking beast. And when you see Chad, if you see a picture of him, you would probably have no problem believing me that he used to be the face on all of the Abercrombie shopping bags. But, and that's not a lie, he really was. But besides being just another pretty face, he's an amazing actor and very successful entrepreneur. And as a kid, he was an amazing athlete. He held a bunch of state swimming and wrestling records. He was a quarterback on his high school football team. He captained the lacrosse team. And also, at the time, he was a professional gamer, like video games. It's absolutely nuts. And during his senior year in high school, he convinced his mom to give his college savings to him to pursue a business that created gaming hardware and peripherals like mice and keyboards and stuff. And After dropping out of high school and in the midst of launching this gaming company, he moved to New York City to pursue his career in modeling. And after a lot of hard work, he landed international campaigns and worked for brands like Abercrombie, Calvin Klein, and Versace. And after traveling all over the world as a model, he decided that he wanted to pursue a career in acting. So he moved to LA, got involved in acting classes, and the rest is history. Now he's best known for his role as Hunter Morgan on the TV show Star. And recently he's appeared in several other shows, including Jane the Virgin, Grey's Anatomy, Glee, and he recently joined the cast of Marvel's Inhumans. And he has a lot of other really exciting projects in the works as well. We recorded that episode in sunny Los Angeles. It was an absolute blast, and I am glad to call Chad a friend. That episode will be coming out early next week, so don't miss it. If you want to support the show, please go to iTunes, rate it 5 stars, tell a friend, all that good stuff. Really helps the show get out to more people. I've had so many people in the past couple weeks telling me how much they've recommended my show, and that just means the world to me that you got enough value from it that you told a friend about it. That's just so cool. But if you want to follow me, you can go to my website, andrewdeitsch.com. That's andrewdeitsch.com. You can find the links to all of my social media accounts. I'm pretty active on everything. I'm not really active on Twitter, but Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. Go find me there. And thank you guys so much for continuing to support the show and blowing me away with your kind words, your meaningful posts about the podcast. It just means the world to me. So thank you guys for sharing it with everyone. And that's pretty much all I got. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
Keto in the bed, not on the streets, right?
Yeah.